Chapter 1132. Gu Yuna had shouldered the heavy responsibility of reviving the soul beast for so many years, and she was already struggling to catch her breath. Even though Lu Yuan was sharing the burden with her, Lu Yuan was still far too weak, so she didn't dare to relax for even a single moment. Now that she could sense that Lu Yuan's aura was comparable to that of a first-tier god, how could she repress the joy in her heart? As such, she didn't want to waste any time and wanted Lu Yuan to become a god in the shortest time possible. This was a very normal thing to do. If Lu Yuan were in Gu Yuna's shoes, he would also be thinking the same thing. Do you have something else you need my help with? What is it? A hint of reluctance appeared in Gu Yuna's voice upon hearing Lu Yuan's words. She was still distracted by other things at a time like this, so she should be making the most of her time to become a god as soon as possible. However, despite her reluctance, she didn't say anything. She had a proud personality, but in front of Lu Yuan, she was extremely gentle and obedient, so she didn't want to complain or make things difficult for Lu Yuan. She had always been a very sensible girl. Lu Yuan could naturally hear the reluctance in Gu Yuna's voice, and he hugged her tightly before gently planting a kiss on her lips. After that, I'll take care of some other matters, and I'll go to the Dragon Valley with you as soon as possible. Is that all right? Don't be in such a hurry. I have to take care of everything before I can go into seclusion, right? Gu Yuna faltered slightly upon hearing this, and her purple eyes flashed slightly. After a short while, she sighed and said, "All right, I'll do as you say. Tell me what you need my help with." I knew my nodder was the best. Lu Yuan kissed Gu Yuna's lips again and said, "Actually, the situation is like this." Lu Yuan gave Gu Yuna a detailed explanation of how he wanted to increase the age of his soul rings. So that's how it is. You treat her really well. Gu Yuna shot a resentful look at Lu Yuan. This guy was really good to Chihiro Snow. Back then, he was even willing to beg her for help for Chihiro Snow. Now, he was going to research how to upgrade his soul rings for Chihiro Snow. Even with her personality, she couldn't help but feel a little jealous at this level of care. Am I not good to you? Lu Yuan looked down at Gu Yuna with a smile. Humph, you know it yourself. Gu Yuna snorted. Lu Yuan was naturally very good to her, but sometimes there was no harm without comparison. Lu Yuan was obviously much better to Chihiro Snow than her. Lu Yuan smiled bitterly and said, "Then I'll treat you better in the future." When the gentle Gu Yuna became jealous, it was quite difficult for him to resist. "You said it," Gu Yuna said in a tender voice. "I did," Lu Yuan replied. "That's more like it." Gu Yuna pursed her lips before taking the initiative to kiss Lu Yuan. After that, she said, "It's actually not difficult to increase the age of your soul rings. As long as you inject sufficient energy into your soul rings, you'll be able to do so. However, there are requirements for the amount of energy injected. Firstly, the energy injected has to be extremely pure and of extremely high quality. It's best if it's energy above the divine grade. It was exactly because the energy from the Golden Dragon God Core was extremely pure that it was able to increase the age of your soul rings. Secondly, there are also requirements for increasing the age of your soul rings. You can't increase the age of your soul rings by too much at once, and you can't exceed the tolerance limit of a soul master. For a normal titled Ba, it's fine if all of their soul rings are increased to 20,000 or 30,000 years at once. But if they exceed 50,000 years, then the accumulated energy of 50,000 years will be injected into their body, and they'll instantly explode. Thirdly, and also the most important thing, is the source of the energy. Increasing the age of someone else's soul rings is definitely an arduous and thankless task. It'll expend a lot of your own energy, and you'll only be able to use 30% to 40% of the energy injected into your soul rings. If you want to increase the age of all of Chihiro Snow's soul rings to 100,000 years, you'll have to expend an enormous amount of energy. Back then, the energy from the 2 layers of the Golden Dragon God Core was equivalent to more than 10% of a complete first-grade God Core, yet you were only able to increase the age of your first 6 soul rings to 500,000 years. In contrast, Increasing the age of all 6 of Chihiro Snow's soul rings to 100,000 years won't require as much energy as you did back then, but it definitely won't be a small amount. She'll drain you dry. Are you still willing to do that? Guyuna's purple eyes flashed slightly as she asked in an indifferent voice. What do you think? Lu Yuan smiled as he looked at her. Guyuna immediately understood what Lu Yuan was thinking at the sight of his expression. I really am a little jealous of her, Guyuna said in a forlorn voice. There's no need to be jealous of her. I'll treat you just as well, I promise. Lu Yuan said in a serious manner. I certainly hope so. Guyuna glanced at Lu Yuan with a hint of resentment in her eyes. Lu Yuan heaved a faint sigh at the sight of the resentment in Guyuna's eyes, and he slowly lowered his head. Words couldn't be trusted. It appeared that real actions were more convincing. He wanted to let Guyuna know that he really loved her very, very much. Sa, be gentle. Guyuna's gentle voice sounded. All right. Lu Yuan's voice was filled with tenderness and love. 3 days passed in a flash, and during these 3 days of intimate interaction with Guyuna, Lu Yuan finally succeeded in dispelling the resentment in Guyuna's eyes. Guyuna could sense the immense love that he had for her. In the underground space, Guyuna lay obediently in Lu Yuan's arms with a serene smile on her face. Lu Yuan pinched a strand of Guyuna's silver hair and gently stroked her cheek with a gentle look in his eyes. It tickles. Guyuna grabbed onto Lu Yuan's hand as she spoke in a seductive voice. Lu Yuan smiled and gave Guyuna a gentle kiss as he asked, Are you still jealous? Guyuna gently shook her head. After these 3 days, all of her feelings of jealousy had been erased, and all that was left in her heart was satisfaction. As expected, this is the most effective method. Lu Yuan couldn't help but chuckle internally at the sight of Guyuna. No amount of sweet talk was as convincing as a kiss, especially to Guyuna in her current state. The reason why she was feeling so unbalanced was ultimately due to the lack of companionship and loneliness. Come with me to the Martial Soul Palace, and we'll go to the Dragon Valley after we take care of the remaining matters. Lu Yuan said in a gentle voice, I think it's best if I go in secret. Aren't you afraid that the Divine Realm will discover us if we appear together? Guyuna asked. I'll temporarily block the detection of the Divine Realm, so it won't be for long, Lu Yuan replied in a gentle voice. All right then. Guyuna hesitated momentarily before nodding in the end. Chapter 1133. With Lu Yuan's current strength and control of the clear Qi God power, it was easy for him to shield himself from the God Realm's detection. As long as he didn't expose himself with Guyuna, it wouldn't be a big problem even if the God Realm couldn't detect him for a while. After all, his strength was tyrannical, and the God Realm was clear about it. It was normal for him to be able to detect the God Realm's detection and shield himself. Moreover, there were many strange places on the Douluo continent. There were also places that could hide from the God Realm's detection. For example, the underground space and the dragon graveyard that they were going to later belong to such places. If Lu Yuan entered such a place, it was normal that the God Realm couldn't detect him. After such a long period of spying, the God Realm had basically believed him. This was because in the past, the feeling of being spied on would appear almost every once in a while. But recently, for more than a month, he didn't feel that feeling anymore. It seemed that after killing Cho Muyi, a god of the fallen angel bloodline, the God Realm had already let go of his worries. However, he still had to be careful. After all, he was now the inheritor of the Azura god, and he had already entered the 8th trial. The Azura god would definitely pay attention to him, but he didn't know when he would pay attention. Therefore, he still had to make preparations. When he was with Guyuna, he still had to shield himself from the God Realm's detection. After all, Guyuna's identity was special, and he couldn't be exposed under the eyes of the God Realm. After convincing Guyuna, Lu Yuan held her hand and opened the passage to the Martial Spirit Palace. A spatial crack appeared, and Lu Yuan directly walked in while holding her hand. When they reappeared, they were already back at the pavilion in the middle of the lake. From the great star Doe Forest to the martial spirit palace, it was such a far place, but the two of them had already arrived in a short time. This was the convenience of spatial teleportation. Walking out of the spatial crack, Gu Yuna couldn't help but exclaim softly, "Oh Bu-Chi, your control of the power of space is really getting stronger and stronger." Walking out of the spatial crack, her beautiful eyes looked at Lu Yuan, and she couldn't help but exclaim softly, "Compared to you, I'm still far behind." Lu Yuan smiled faintly and said softly, "I specialize in playing with space, so there's no point in competing with me. To be honest, you've made great progress," Gu Yuna said with a serious look on her face. "Really?" Lu Yuan smiled and asked. "Really?" Gu Yuna nodded with certainty. Hearing this, Lu Yuan smiled again and held Gu Yuna's hand as they walked down. Bibi Dan and Chihiro Snow were both sitting in the pavilion, so when Lu Yuan and Gu Yuna appeared, they immediately noticed them. Seeing Gu Yuna, Bibi Dan smiled at her and nodded. As Lu Yuan's legal wife, she needed to build a good relationship with all of Lu Yuan's women. Chihiro Snow also nodded, but compared to Bibidan's smiling face, Chihiro Snow's beautiful face was still calm. It was really difficult for her to take the initiative to smile at people other than Lu Yuan. Although after Lu Yuan's persuasion, she was slowly restraining herself, but her arrogance was still there. Therefore, Lu Yuan's words that Chihiro Snow was not suitable for the position of legal wife because of her arrogance were very reasonable. Of course, the current Chihiro Snow was actually a lot better. If it were in the past, she would never take the initiative to greet Gu Yuna. Now, that she was willing to take the initiative to nod to Gu Yuna, it was already a great improvement. Seeing the two greet each other, Gu Yuna smiled and returned the greeting. She was also arrogant. She was the supreme soul beast, the Silver Dragon King. How tyrannical was her strength, and how respected was her status. Bibi Dan and Chihiro Snow's current strength was actually not enough to enter her eyes, but she was very sensible and smart. First, Bibi Dan and Chihiro Snow were people who had a chance to become gods. Second, and most importantly, she knew that Lu Yuan loved the two of them very much, so she put away her arrogance and got along with them as equals. She knew that this was what Lu Yuan wanted to see the most. Therefore, although Gu Yuna was arrogant, she was flexible and could also get along well with Bibi Dan and the others. In this regard, she was better than Chihiro Snow. Seeing the harmonious atmosphere between the three women, Lu Yuan was naturally in an extremely good mood. He cared about the people around him the most, so Lu Yuan was naturally very happy that they could get along well with each other. Lu Yuan led Gu Yuna to the pavilion at the center of the lake, then personally poured a cup of tea for Gu Yuna. After that, he poured a cup for himself and slowly tasted it. After taking a sip of tea, Lu Yuan put down the teacup and looked at Chihiro Snow. "Cher, you can start your business now." "Really?" Chihiro Snow's golden eyes widened with an indescribable hint of pleasant surprise. Could her soul rings finally be upgraded? All of them were 100,000-year soul rings, so naturally, Chihiro Snow was also very eager. "Of course." Lu Yuan chuckled. "What can we start with?" Bibi Dan looked at Lu Yuan with a puzzled expression, her beautiful eyes carrying a touch of curiosity. "The matter of increasing the age of the soul rings," Lu Yuan said with a smile. "Increasing the age of the soul rings?" Bibi Dan was shocked and couldn't help but ask, "You can already do this kind of thing?" "More or less." Lu Yuan shrugged and replied. "Hiss." Bibi Dan sucked in a breath of cold air and looked deeply at Lu Yuan with her beautiful eyes. This little man is really becoming more and more incredible. "After helping Cher upgrade, it will be your turn, don't worry," Lu Yuan said softly as he stroked Bibidan's soft purple hair. "I also have a Cher," Bibi Dan asked with a little surprise. "Nonsense, you are my dong heir. How can you not have a Cher?" Lu Yuan rolled his eyes at Bibi Dan and said indifferently. Hearing this, the corners of Bibidan's mouth curled up slightly, and there was a hint of a cheerful smile in her eyes. She didn't care whether the age of the soul rings was upgraded or not. What she cared about was Lu Yuan's feelings. She was different from Chihiro Snow. She had already passed the time when she had a strong desire for strength. Now, she cared more about the love between her and Lu Yuan. Other than that, she didn't care about anything else. Chihiro Snow was still young, and his mentality was a little competitive, so he still had an extremely strong desire for strength. These two attitudes couldn't be said to be good or bad. There was nothing wrong with pursuing strength. Lu Yuan also pursued strength, and the pursuit of strength and love were not different. It was just that one enjoyed the pleasure of increasing strength and the beauty of love, while the other was wholeheartedly devoted to love and pursued the sweetness of love. For Lu Yuan, he appreciated both attitudes. It couldn't be helped. He was such a universal person. Don't forget Nana. BB Don was happy and couldn't help but remind him. Other than Lu Yuan, the only person she cared about was Hulina. Chapter 1134. Don't worry, of course I won't forget about her. I'll also remember Zhu Qing and Rongrong. Lu Yuan smiled. They were all his women, and he naturally wouldn't forget about them. He would make arrangements for all of them. Furthermore, when he was about to become a titled Daw, he would find time to capture the evil-eye tyrant king from the Sun Moon continent. He was very suitable to be Hulina's 9th soul ring. Hulina should be a rank 85 soul Douluo now. To reach rank 85 at 25 years of age, Hulina's talent was considered very high. Chihiro Snow was able to rise from a rank 85 soul Douluo to a pseudo-god in a little more than a year because he had cheats along the way. The Snow Emperor, the Ice Empress, the Ice Bear King, and the Angel God Crystal allowed Chihiro Snow to transform. Otherwise, Chihiro Snow would only be around rank 89 now. Even if he was of a higher rank than Hulina, he wouldn't be so much higher than he was now. After all, Hulina had consumed the yearning heartbroken red and the crystalline blood dragon ginseng. Furthermore, she had 100,000-year soul bone. To put it bluntly, compared to Chihiro Snow when he was rank 90, Hulina's physique would be much stronger than Chihiro Snow's when she reached rank 90. If she completely absorbed the 2 king of immortal soul rings, it would be enough to push Hulina's physique to the god rank. Roughly speaking, Hulina could absorb soul rings from savage beasts that were more than 700,000 years old when she reached rank 90. On the other hand, Chihiro Snow's god-bestowed soul rings were more than 500,000 years old when he was rank 90. There was still a gap. However, this was only below the divine level, and only in terms of the toughness of her physique. Regardless of whether it was now or in the future, Qianrenchua's talent and strength would definitely be stronger than Hulina's. Furthermore, Chihiro Snow's physique had already reached the god realm. This was the effect of the Angel God Crystal. If Hulina were to reach the semi-divinity realm, her physique would only be at the same level as well. It would still be difficult for her to surpass Chihiro Snow. However, Hulina would not be weak. After all, she was trained by Lu Yuan. She was definitely a genius among geniuses. As for Zhu Qing, although Lu Yuan had helped her a lot, she was innately weaker. Because she didn't have the innate full soul power, she was slightly weaker than Hulina. Of course, it was only by a bit. As for Ning Rongrong, she was definitely an unprecedented prodigy among auxiliary-type soul masters, even if she couldn't be compared to soul warriors. She should be a soul sage now, around rank 76 or 77. Zhu Qing should be around rank 80. These were all Lu Yuan's estimates of their strength, and it should be close to the mark. Compared to the original trajectory, they were undoubtedly much stronger now. And this was naturally the result of Lu Yuan's help. That's good. I was afraid that you would forget about Nana and the others, BB Don said softly after hearing Lu Yuan's words. How was that possible? Am I that kind of person? Lu Yuan rolled his eyes. Since she was his woman, it was only natural that he would remember everything she said. BB Don actually thought of him that way. BB Don glanced at Lu Yuan and said indifferently, You're not. I'm the one who's thinking too much. No, you're not sincere. You've caused great damage to my character. I want compensation, Lu Yuan said softly. Compensation? What compensation? BB Don looked at him, in confusion. Hee, I'll tell you tonight. Lu Yuan chuckled and said softly, "Bah, pervert." Bibidon blushed and instantly understood Lu Yuan's thoughts. This bad guy always likes to think about these messy things. Do you agree? Lu Yuan asked with a smile. Who said that? I didn't. Bibidon quickly retorted. She couldn't make such a shameful posture. Hee, it's useless to object. It's settled. Lu Yuan chuckled and decided directly. Bastard. Bibidon couldn't help but grumble, her beautiful eyes staring at Lu Yuan. Lu Yuan didn't care at all. He carefully looked at Bibidon's beautiful face with a warm smile on his face. You're really getting more and more shameless. You only know how to bully us. Chihiro Snow couldn't help but help. Even she couldn't stand it anymore. I'm gonna faint. If I don't bully you, then why would I bully other women? Lu Yuan rolled his eyes and said unhappily. Hulina and the others weren't by his side, so he could only get close to Chihiro Snow and the others. He wasn't like some people who had the habit of visiting prostitutes or sleeping with women without feelings. Although he lusted after Chihiro Snow and the others' bodies, he also liked to talk about feelings first. He would never touch women without feelings. You still want to bully other women? Qian Rinxue clenched her teeth. Her voice was filled with coldness as she spat out those words. Not only her, but even Bibidon and Gu Yuna looked at him with cold eyes. Lu Yuan, did he say that he had such intentions? How could these women think that way? Ahem, let's get down to business first. Share, let's go to your room. I'll help you increase the age of your soul rings. 3 cold eyes stared at him, and he couldn't stand it, so he immediately changed the topic. If that's the case, then why aren't you leaving? Why are you still sitting here? Chihiro Snow snorted and urged. Okay, let's go. Lu Yuan stood up and said softly, Do you want to watch? Lu Yuan looked at Gu Yuna and Bibidon. What do you think? The 2 women asked indifferently. Okay, then let's follow together. Lu Yuan sighed and walked forward. If it was only one of them, he had a way to deal with it. But if all 3 of them were like this and had a common enemy, then he couldn't afford to offend them. By the way, did I do something wrong? Lu Yuan muttered as he walked. It seemed like he might not have done anything wrong. He was being targeted for no reason. I can't help it. Lu Yuan sighed in his heart and couldn't help but quicken his pace. Looking at Chihiro Snow, who was sitting cross-legged on the bed and possessed by his martial soul, Lu Yuan couldn't help but ask, Are you ready? I'm ready. Chihiro Snow nodded and said softly, Okay, then I'll start. As Lu Yuan spoke, his body began to emit a dense divine power. The white light turned into 6 streams of light and directly poured into Chihiro Snow's first 6 soul rings. The best way to increase a soul ring's age was to use divine power. Lu Yuan's clear Qi Meridian soul power wasn't up to standard, but his divine power was. With the infusion of energy, Chihiro Snow's first 6 soul rings began to change, especially the first 200-year soul rings. Originally, Chihiro Snow's first 2 soul rings were deep yellow, but with the infusion of divine power, a faint purple color appeared within the deep yellow. Chapter 1135. Soul rings that were over 600 years old were dark yellow in color, while those that were over 800 years old were faintly purple in color. Those that were over 900 years old were even more purple in color. Chihiro Snow's first 2 soul rings were originally over 700 years old. Because she was at the innate rank 20 soul power limit, her first 2 soul rings had reached the theoretical limit for absorbing soul rings even though they were only 100 years old. But now, with the infusion of clear Qi divine power, the soul rings began to increase in age. Now that they were over 800 years old, the soul rings began to glow purple. It's really useful. Seeing this scene, Lu Yuan's eyes flashed, and he began to increase the infusion of clear Qi divine power. The soul rings began to increase in age. Not long after, the first 200-year soul rings had completely become 1,000-year soul rings. The faint purple soul rings emitted a mysterious purple light. Compared to a 100-year soul ring, a 1,000-year soul ring was indeed much better. However, a 1,000-year soul ring was far from enough. Compared to the purple light, the bright red color was more moving. Lu Yuan slowly released his clear qi divine power, while Bibidon and Gu Yuna carefully observed from the side. The soul rings actually increased in age. Bibidon's eyes had a trace of astonishment. This was the first time he had seen a soul ring increase in age so clearly. Such a scene could be said to be rarely seen on the continent. On the other hand, Gu Yuna was staring blankly at Chihiro Snow's martial soul. Naturally, she had seen Chihiro Snow's martial soul before. She also knew that Chihiro Snow's martial soul was originally a six-winged angel. She didn't expect that it had evolved to the level of a 10-winged angel. A 10-winged angel was already a half-step God King martial soul. If it advanced to a 12-winged angel, it would be a genuine God King martial soul. In other words, if the current Chihiro Snow inherited the angel deity position, there was a chance that it could be deduced to the God King martial soul. If Chihiro Snow became a God King martial soul, it wouldn't be inferior to her at all. As expected, there's a reason why he likes you and favors you so much. You do have the qualifications. Gu Yuna said softly in her heart. Her purple eyes flickered slightly, exuding a mysterious and noble aura. Chihiro Snow's appearance was not inferior to hers. Both of their appearances could be said to be peerless. The only thing they lacked was their temperament. However, temperament could be cultivated. Once Chihiro Snow became a god, her temperament would definitely undergo a metamorphosis. This way, she would be able to be on par with her and could also be called a perfect goddess. There was no woman who didn't care about her appearance. Perhaps the Silver Dragon King didn't care about it in the past, but after falling in love with Lu Yuan, the Silver Dragon King cared about it very much. In her heart, Chihiro Snow was already a very strong opponent. Originally, she was definitely the most beautiful in Lu Yuan's harem, but now she felt threatened by Chihiro Snow. Gu Yuna's eyes flickered. She couldn't help but grab Lu Yuan's free left hand. Lu Yuan was controlling the clear qi divine power when he was suddenly grabbed by Gu Yuna's soft hand. The warm and soft touch made him immediately shift his gaze. "What's wrong, Ar?" Lu Yuan asked in a low voice. "It's nothing. Obuchi, you will always love me, right? Even if I'm not the most beautiful one?" Gu Yuna stared intently at Lu Yuan with anticipation in her eyes, but there was also a hint of unease in her eyes. She still remembered that Lu Yuan liked her at the beginning because of her appearance. If she wasn't the most beautiful one, would Lu Yuan still love her as much as he did now? She was a little worried and a little flustered. Logically speaking, she was the Silver Dragon King. Her status was noble and her beauty was unparalleled. She didn't need to panic. However, love couldn't be measured by common sense. Sensing the threat of Chihiro Snow's appearance, she was also a little nervous. "Why do you ask?" Lu Yuan looked at Gu Yuna with a puzzled expression. "Just answer me." Gu Yuna grabbed Lu Yuan's left hand with a hint of urgency in her eyes. "All right." Lu Yuan heaved a faint sigh as he looked at Gu Yuna with a serious expression. "Of course I'll always love you. It has nothing to do with whether you're the most beautiful woman in the world or not. In the beginning, I did fall in love with your face, but now I love you more." Lu Yuan's eyes were filled with deep affection as he said in a gentle tone, "Obuchi." Gu Yuna's heart dropped, and a relaxed smile appeared on her face. "That's right. You should smile more. Don't think too much. Since we are already together, I will love you for the rest of my life. I am not a person who likes the new and hates the old." Lu Yuan pinched Gu Yuna's soft hand and said with a smile. He didn't know what was going on, but he knew that Gu Yuna had most likely misunderstood something. You don't like the new and hates the old. You only like the new and never hate the old. Bibi Dawn pursed her lips and spoke in an indifferent voice. Gu Yuna couldn't help but burst into laughter with a joyful smile on her face. "You talk too much." Lu Yuan glared at Bibi Dawn. "So what if I talk too much?" Bibi Dawn glared back at Lu Yuan. She wasn't afraid of Lu Yuan. "Nothing, as long as you're happy." Lu Yuan turned around and injected his pure divine power into Chihiro Snow's first 6 soul rings again. Meanwhile, Guyuna leaned gently against Lu Yuan's left shoulder and looked on in silence. Time passed minute by minute, and in the blink of an eye, the afternoon had slipped away. The pure divine power was still shining, and Chihiro Snow's first 6 soul rings had turned dark black with a tinge of blood red. They were very close to a 100,000-year soul ring. "Break through!" Lu Yuan shouted, and the pure divine power gushed out crazily. Chihiro Snow's first 6 soul rings blossomed with blood-red light at the same time, and the 6 dark black soul rings with a tinge of blood-red color completely turned into 6 blood-red soul rings at this moment. The 6 soul rings all turned into 100,000-year soul rings at the same time. With this transformation, Chihiro Snow's 10-winged angel soul rings turned red, and 9 blood-red soul rings were completely blood-red. When these 9 blood-red soul rings were placed together, the impact was extraordinarily huge. Seeing this, Lu Yuan heaved a sigh of relief and withdrew the pure divine power in his hand. "Obuchi, are you okay?" Guyuna asked with concern as she held Lu Yuan's shoulder. "I'm fine. I mainly used the pure divine power. I didn't use much of it." This time, increasing the age of his soul rings didn't drain him, like Guyuna said. On the contrary, it was the pure divine power that did the work, and he only used some of his spiritual power. However, controlling such a large amount of clear chi divine energy for such a long time had drained his mental energy. Controlling clear chi divine energy consumed a lot more than controlling other people's thoughts and actions. Chapter 11:36. After all, the clear aura godly power was of a very high level, and it was not easy to control it in large quantities. It would definitely consume a lot of spiritual power. Of course, given Lu Yuan's mental strength, such a small consumption was completely within an acceptable range. Therefore, Lu Yuan was indeed fine now, and he was in a good state. "It's good that you're fine." Guyuna sized up Lu Yuan for a while, and when she saw that Lu Yuan was still in high spirits, she was finally relieved. Lu Yuan patted Guyuna's hand gently, and then turned his gaze to Chihiro Snow. At this moment, Chihiro Snow had opened her eyes, and there was an indescribable pressure in her golden eyes. Her first 6 soul rings had all broken through to the 100,000-year level, which was quite a significant boost to her strength. However, everyone here was an expert, and although Chihiro Snow's gaze was extremely oppressive, it did not affect anyone. "How do you feel, Cher?" Lu Yuan asked softly. "I feel very good. I feel as if my whole body has become more energetic, and I feel as if there's an endless amount of energy in my body." Chihiro Snow smiled sweetly. "That's good." Lu Yuan smiled. It seemed that the upgrade of the soul rings this time was very effective. "Dong Air, do you want to give it a try?" Lu Yuan looked at BB Don again. "No, it's late. Let's do it tomorrow. Also, you have to rest well. Don't tire yourself out," BB Don said with concern. "Okay, then let's try it tomorrow." Lu Yuan nodded and did not insist. It was indeed late, and the sun was about to set. "I'll get them to prepare food. I think everyone should be hungry," BB Don said gently. "Then you go." Lu Yuan smiled. In fact, he and Guyuna did not need to eat anymore. Chihiro Snow had also attained a divine body, but sometimes eating was not just to fill the stomach, but to enjoy the process. BB Don went and prepared an extremely luxurious dinner to welcome Guyuna's arrival. Hushin Island had also prepared a room for Guyuna. On the first night, Lu Yuan naturally wanted to accompany Guyuna. After the meal, they chatted for a while before returning to their rooms. The next day, Lu Yuan used his clear aura god power to upgrade Bibidon's 2 soul rings to the 100,000-year level. A total of 10 soul rings were upgraded to the 100,000-year level, and a huge amount of energy that allowed BB Don to break through to the peak of the semi-god realm. As for Bibidon's physique, Lu Yuan used his clear aura god power to upgrade it to a divine body. This time, Lu Yuan's spiritual power was greatly depleted, and he had to go into seclusion for a while to recover. After 2 days of leisure with Lu Yuan, Chihiro Snow dragged him to the Angel Temple again. This time, Chihiro Snow was going to start the 9th angel trial for real. Lu Yuan's 9-sage sword trial was already finished, but Chihiro Snow still insisted on dragging him along. In Chihiro Snow's words, she felt uneasy without Lu Yuan around. Left with no choice, Lu Yuan could only follow her. The 9th trial also involved Sindoriu's sacrifice. The land of inheritance was located in the void between the God Realm and the Douluo continent. It was a place that ordinary people couldn't enter, so Sindoriu had to sacrifice himself to open a passage for Chihiro Snow. Sindoriu would die after the sacrifice, and Lu Yuan would have to collect his soul so that he could be resurrected in the future. The two of them held hands and walked all the way to the angel temple. Sindoriu stood with his back to the two of them, his hands clasped behind his back and his back straight. Hearing footsteps, Sindoriu slowly turned his head. "You're here," Sindoriu said softly as he looked at the two of them calmly. "Grandpa," Chihiro Snow called out in a clear and melodious voice. Lu Yuan, on the other hand, nodded gently and hummed in acknowledgement. "This day has finally arrived," Sindoriu sighed softly. Looking at Chihiro Snow, his eyes were filled with gratification, love, and a hint of reluctance. "Cher, you're really outstanding. Grandpa is proud of you," Sindoriu said softly. "Grandpa," Chihiro Snow stepped forward and supported Sindoriu. Sindoriu smiled kindly. He reached out and gently stroked Chihiro Snow's head, his eyes full of affection. "Lu Yuan, come here," Sindoriu called out to Lu Yuan. Lu Yuan blinked and walked toward Sindoriu. Looking at Lu Yuan walking in front of him, Sindoriu carefully sized him up for a while. A complicated look flashed through his eyes. He sighed softly with a relieved look on his face. "You're indeed a rare talent. It's not surprising that Pasizi likes you. Whether it's me or Tang Chun, we're far inferior to you. But no matter if it's Shui or Bai Saishi, since they like you, you have to treat them well, especially Shui. She's already your wife. You can't mistreat her, you can't make her sad, and you can't let her down. If you dare to bully her and let her down, I won't let you go even if I become a ghost." Sindoriu stared at Lu Yuan and said sternly, "Don't worry, I'll take good care of them. I swear on my life." Lu Yuan nodded and said softly, "Good, that's what a man should say." Hearing Lu Yuan's words, Sindoriu smiled with satisfaction. He and Lu Yuan had always disliked each other, but today there was no tit for tat. Sindoriu's eyes narrowed slightly, and there was a trace of reminiscence in his eyes. He said, "Until now, the most regrettable thing in my life was that I couldn't beat Tang Chun once. He was my opponent for life. It's a pity that I'll never have the chance to fight him again. Tang Chun was dead, and he had no chance to fight him. No, you've already beaten Tang Chun once. He was defeated by me, and I'm your grandson-in-law, Grandpa," Lu Yuan said softly. At the last moment of Sindoriu's life, those boring grudges were meaningless. He put down his airs and prejudices and called Sindoriu Grandpa again. "You call me Grandpa? You finally call me Grandpa again." Sindoriu's face first showed a trace of surprise, and then it turned into a pleasant surprise. Since that quarrel, they had been at odds with each other, and Lu Yuan had never called him Grandpa again. Today's call really made Sindoriu overjoyed. Good. I have no regrets in my life. Although I didn't defeat Tang Chun, my grandson-in-law defeated him." Chapter 1137. Tang Chun, I finally won against you once. Qian Dao Lu's face was full of smiles, and his entire body was brimming with a sense of relaxation and joy. His obsession with defeating Tang Chun was much deeper than his obsession with Pasizi. When Pasizi rejected him tactfully and said that he liked Tang Chun, he had already let it go. It was just that he was still a little indignant. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been so indifferent about Lu Yuan and Pasizi being together. He knew that Pasizi never liked him. After all, he was Sindoriu and an ultimate Douluo. He still had his manners. Therefore, he let go of his principles after struggling for a while, just like he did in the past. However, he still remembered Tang Chun, who was his rival for life. When he lost to Tang Chun, he promised that he would never step foot into the Clear Sky sect. In fact, he kept his promise. There was no need to mention the original trajectory. The Supreme Sky sect wasn't destroyed at all. Even in the current trajectory, the Thousand Dao Stream didn't appear throughout the entire process of destroying the Supreme Sky sect. It was Lu Yuan who sent Long Xiaoyao to lead his troops up the mountain to destroy the Supreme Sky sect. Therefore, Sendoryu was very trustworthy. As for what others said about Sendoryu not destroying the Clear Sky sect, because he was worried that Tang Chun would take revenge on the Martial Soul Palace after becoming a god, that was pure nonsense. If a person disappeared for decades without any news, normal people wouldn't think that he had become a god. The most likely possibility was that he had died. After all, he would have become a god a long time ago if he wanted to. If he didn't do anything for decades, he wouldn't be able to become a god. Furthermore, Chihiro Snow and BB Dawn were in the Martial Soul Palace back then. They would become gods sooner or later. It didn't make sense to say that he was afraid that Tang Chun would destroy the Martial Soul Palace. Therefore, in conclusion, it was more likely that Sendoryu had kept his promise. Sendoryu's obsession with Tang Chun could also be proven. In the original timeline, when Chihiro Snow was in the 9th trial, Sendoryu had said some final words before he sacrificed himself. Other than advising Chihiro Snow not to hate BB Dawn, he only mentioned Tang Chun. He said that Tang Chun was the only opponent he had yet to defeat. If Tang Chun did not fall, he would ask Chihiro Snow to help him defeat him. Just like the current situation, in the end, he was still thinking about Tang Chun, not Pasizi. This meant that the most unforgettable person in his heart was still Tang Chun, his lifelong enemy. However, thinking about it carefully, Sendoryu was also a rare peerless genius. However, he had been suppressed by Tang Chun from the beginning to the end, whether it was in terms of strength or feelings. As such, it would be strange if he did not have any obsession with Tang Chun. Just like the opponents that Lu Yuan had defeated, they all had a strong obsession with Lu Yuan. However, they were not Sendoryu, and Lu Yuan was not Tang Chun. They were not like Tang Chun, who was only a little stronger than Sendoryu. They were completely crushed. Therefore, those obsessions were all given up in the end and vanished into thin air. After all, if the gap was too big, they would lose the motivation to catch up. Looking at the smile on Sendoryu's face, Lu Yuan and Chihiro Snow looked at each other and smiled together. Although they felt that the atmosphere at the moment was a bit strange, and the conversation between Lu Yuan and Sendoryu was also a bit strange, seeing Sendoryu's happy smile, Chihiro Snow was also very happy for him. Sendoryu sighed for a while before coming back to his senses. A look of nostalgia flashed in his eyes and then quickly disappeared. He said to Chihiro Snow, "Share, let's start." "Okay." Chihiro Snow nodded slightly and responded. Sitting opposite each other on the futons, the distance between Sendoryu and Chihiro Snow was less than 2 meters, while Lu Yuan stood in the hall and looked at the two quietly. Sendoryu's body began to emit a golden light, as if he had been summoned. A golden beam of light directly shrouded Chihiro Snow's body from the top of the angel statue. Shrouded in the golden beam of light, Chihiro Snow suddenly felt a huge binding force and traction force, and his whole body was suddenly unable to move. The golden light on Sendoryu's body became more and more intense, turning into a bright golden flame. His cultivation and life were quickly burning at this moment. Chihiro Snow instantly realized that something was wrong and anxiously shouted, "Grandpa, what are you doing?" Sendoryu looked at Chihiro Snow dotingly and said with a smile, "Share, Grandpa is the god's messenger, and this 9th test requires Grandpa's sacrifice to open the passage to the inheritance temple for you. Don't be sad, this is Grandpa's destiny. To be able to see another god of the angel bloodline, Grandpa's heart is more than happy. It's just a pity that Grandpa can no longer take care of you in the future. Fortunately, you still have Obuchi to accompany you, and he will definitely take good care of you." Sendoryu smiled, and the golden flame on his body became more and more brilliant, and his whole life force became weaker and weaker, and his body began to become somewhat illusory. No, 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 Grandpa. Don't leave Cher. Cher doesn't want you to die. Chihiro Snow crazily shouted, and tears burst out of her eyes, wetting her beautiful cheeks and leaving a trail of tears. She really didn't expect that the 9th test would be opened by sacrificing Sindoria's life. If she had known, she would have never taken the 9th test. No wonder Sindoriu's words were so strange. It turned out that he was actually making arrangements for his death. Chihiro Snow's face was covered in tears, and she was crying her heart out. As she looked around, Lu Yuan's figure came into view, and suddenly, she seemed to have found her last savior. Obuchi, hurry up and interrupt Grandpa. Hurry. Chihiro Snow shouted, and her voice was full of urgency. The sacrifice is irreversible. It can't be stopped. Lu Yuan shook his head, and his plain words seemed to have thrown Chihiro Snow into the abyss. Qianrenchue's tears rolled down her cheeks as she felt extremely sad. Lu Yuan's heart ached when he saw this, and he said softly, "Cher, don't cry." His words immediately attracted Chihiro Snow's attention, and her beautiful golden eyes flashed, as if she had understood something. Obuchi, did you already know about the sacrifice? From the calmness in Lu Yuan's eyes, there was no trace of surprise, and she had already guessed that Lu Yuan might have already known about this matter. Yes, I already knew. Lu Yuan didn't quibble and directly admitted it. Then why didn't you tell me earlier? Why didn't you tell me that the 9th test was opened at the cost of Grandpa's life? Why? Hearing this, Qianrenchue broke down. She questioned Lu Yuan in a frenzy, tears falling like beads, her golden eyes red from crying. Don't blame Obuchi. This is what I told him. I told him not to tell you. Sindoriu's weak voice sounded. He had told Lu Yuan many years ago and told him not to tell Chihiro Snow. Chapter 1138. Grandpa. Chihiro Snow cried loudly, her delicate body twitching constantly. She looked at Sindoriu with her golden eyes, her eyes filled with sadness and reluctance. Lu Yuan felt bad and couldn't help but say, "Cher, don't cry. Grandpa won't die. He can still be resurrected." Chihiro Snow and Sindoriu were both shocked at the same time. Chihiro Snow especially widened her eyes in shock. Coupled with her face full of tears, it was very strange. Is what you said true? Obuchi? Chihiro Snow couldn't help but ask. Of course it's true. Pasizi also needs to be sacrificed. With my relationship with her, would I just watch her die? Naturally, she can be resurrected. Lu Yuan said calmly. That's good, that's good. Chihiro Snow breathed a sigh of relief, her face filled with joy. As long as she could be resurrected. After being happy for a while, Chihiro Snow suddenly thought of something and glared at Lu Yuan fiercely. Then why didn't you say so earlier? You made me cry so much. Chihiro Snow wiped the tears from her face and questioned angrily. You cried too fast. Your tears came out before I could say anything. Also, you were so hysterical that I couldn't get a word in edgewise. Lu Yuan spread his hands and said innocently, Chihiro Snow, so it was all her fault for crying too quickly. I don't care. Anyway, it's all your fault. After I become a god, I'll definitely settle the score with you. You made me cry so miserably. Qianrenchue snorted coquettishly and said resentfully, Hey, Cher, can you be reasonable? How can you blame me for this? Lu Yuan said helplessly, It's all your fault, it's all your fault. Chihiro Snow said coquettishly, Sigh, forget it. I can't be bothered to argue with you. It's all my fault. Lu Yuan sighed. He must be out of his mind to try and reason with Qianrenchue under such circumstances. Was there any woman who could be reasoned with? What a miscalculation. It's good that you know it's all your fault. After I become a god and come out, I'll definitely teach you a lesson. Chihiro Snow clenched her little fists and said in protest. Lu Yuan pursed his lips. He suspected that Chihiro Snow was just looking for an excuse so that she could openly beat him up after she became a god. But was it that easy to beat him? You can teach me a lesson, as long as you have the ability. Lu Yuan said faintly and turned his gaze to the 1004 stream. At this moment, his body was burning so much that it looked like it was about to disappear. Obuchi, Chihiro Snow shouted anxiously. Lu Yuan nodded. White light gathered in his hand, and clear energy and divine power surged. He paid attention to Sendoryu's situation and was prepared to collect Sendoryu's soul at any time. Finally, the last bit of Sendoryu's cultivation and life force was burned out. His body completely disappeared, and only an illusory human figure was left floating. Lu Yuan's hand moved, and clear energy and divine power instantly enveloped Sendoryu and collected him. Don't worry, everything went smoothly. Grandpa's soul is very complete. Lu Yuan said to Chihiro Snow. Qianren was instantly relieved. She no longer resisted the summoning power. Her entire body floated up. When she was close to the golden light spot on top of the angel statue, her entire body suddenly disappeared. She was sucked into a strange whirlpool. Lu Yuan's eyes lit up, and he saw the angel's inheritance temple in the god realm and the Douluo continent's void. Chihiro Snow's figure appeared in the inheritance temple, and the 9th test began. With more than 100% affinity with angels, Chihiro Snow's test was very easy. In addition, Chihiro Snow was relaxed now and didn't have any sadness or obsession. Her heart was very full, so the test went very smoothly. TSK. Cher said she wasn't willing, but she wanted to use that embarrassing position with me. Lu Yuan clicked his tongue in wonder as he looked at the object of Chihiro Snow's fantasies. His polychoria could see through all kinds of strange things and was abnormally mysterious. He saw Chihiro Snow's 9th test clearly from beginning to end. Oh, Cher's awake. Are you going to start modifying your soul bones to form godly equipment? Lu Yuan's eyes were filled with curiosity. Compared to Chihiro Snow's original trajectory, Chihiro Snow now had an additional piece of the Ice Jade Emperor Scorpion's external soul bone. The jade green scorpion's tail had become golden after being modified. It was translucent and had a metallic luster, and the sharp spikes at the end of the tail shone with a dazzling cold light. After the modification, it was still a scorpion's tail. However, even the tail was filled with nobility and dignity after being modified. Furthermore, this scorpion's tail could be attached to one's back and fused with one's wings. Apart from this, the Snow Emperor, Ice Empress, and Ice Bear King spirits also benefited greatly. Boundless angels' godly power enveloped them, and their bodies were dyed with golden light. Their souls became more condensed, as if they had undergone a metamorphosis. Many sets of soul bones were attached to Chihiro Snow's body. Suddenly, Chihiro Snow's aura seemed to have entered a mystical realm, as if he had broken through some kind of barrier. A golden pillar of light shot into the clouds, and a divine and dignified figure appeared in the sky above Martial Spirit City. This figure was 10,000 feet tall, and the entire Martial Spirit City could clearly see her full appearance. She was dressed in gorgeous pure gold armor, and 10 pairs of pure white wings flapped behind her back. She held a gorgeous and noble golden long sword in her hand, and her entire body exuded a lofty aura. Her face was exactly the same as Chihiro Snow's. Cher has become a god. Bibidon couldn't help but sigh as he looked at the enormous, illusory figure. Gu Yuna's eyes flickered, and she used spatial fluctuations to conceal her figure and aura. At the same time, the god kings of the heavenly realm also looked over. A new god had been born in the lower realm, and as the leaders of the heavenly realm, they were naturally very concerned. That seems to be that kid's woman. In the god king's palace, the evil god looked at the scene and said with interest, "She is indeed Lu Yuan's woman, and her talent is not low. A 10-winged angel, this girl has the potential to break through to the God King level," the kind God King said. Indeed, the angel god has found a good successor. This trusted angel god is much stronger than her, the old angel god. The evil god smiled. That's true. The kind God King smiled gently and said softly, "Azura Palace." The Azura god was also watching this scene. 10-winged angel god, not bad talent. She is worthy of that kid. The Azura god's blood-red eyes flickered slightly as he spoke. His gaze shifted to Lu Yuan, who was in the angel temple. It's been some time since the 8th test was announced. Why isn't this kid anxious at all? The Azura god stroked his chin. He was quite dissatisfied with Lu Yuan's laziness in the test. He wanted to hand over his godhood earlier and go out to play. Chapter 1139. However, after Lu Yuan accepted the test, there was no movement at all. He was actually very anxious. He had long since grown tired of staying in the god realm. Azura muttered to himself. Meanwhile, in the angel temple, Lu Yuan furrowed his brows at the same time. He felt that faintly discernible feeling of being spied on. What a persistent ghost. Lu Yuan furrowed his brows, and a trace of hostility appeared in his eyes. He really had enough of being constantly monitored like this. It was like being imprisoned. It's best if I go to the Dragon Valley as soon as possible. The sooner I become a god, the sooner I can break free from these shackles. Lu Yuan's eyes narrowed slightly as he spoke softly in his heart. Whoosh! The angel temple was suddenly filled with boundless golden light, and a holy and pure aura of light filled the entire hall. A golden figure slowly appeared in the hall, and a tyrannical and terrifying aura was released from her body, rushing straight at Lu Yuan. Lu Yuan immediately came back to his senses. The corner of his mouth twitched slightly, and the aura on his body surged like a sharp sword, cleaving the incoming aura in half. Lu Yuan's eyes narrowed. He saw Chihiro Snow standing in front of him. She was clad in dazzling golden armor, with 5 pairs of snow-white wings on her back and an angelic holy sword in her hand. She appeared holy and dignified. She looked at him with her golden eyes, and there was a trace of a faint smile in her eyes. Although Lu Yuan had already seen Qian Rinchua's appearance after she became a god in the land of inheritance with his polychoria, he was shocked to discover how beautiful Qian Rinchua was now when she stood in front of him. Her appearance hadn't changed much, but her skin had become even fairer. She looked as flawless as mutton fat jade. The biggest change was actually her temperament. After becoming a god, Chihiro Snow's body had gained a mysterious aura. This aura made her seem even more holy and pure. Her every movement was filled with an indescribable nobility. Chihiro Snow's temperament had been elevated, and his already peerless looks had risen to a level that was comparable to Gu Yuna's. Just like Gu Yuna, she could be considered a perfect goddess. Moreover, Chihiro Snow's perfection was completely different from Gu Yuna's. She had her own unique charm. This was the first time that Lu Yuan had seen such a perfect Chihiro Snow. For a moment, he was a little absent-minded. Lu Yuan was very familiar with the original Chihiro Snow, even more familiar with her than herself. There was nothing about Chihiro Snow that he didn't know. But today, Chihiro Snow gave him a completely new feeling, a feeling that was even more stunning than when he first met him in the plum garden. Beautiful, so beautiful. Your lips are like red pills, and your skin is like cream. Lu Yuan looked straight at Chihiro Snow, his eyes filled with amazement. He finally knew why Gu Yuna had asked him that question a few days ago. It turned out that she felt threatened by Chihiro Snow. Facts had proven that Chihiro Snow's looks were now on par with Gu Yuna's. Now that he thought about it, the most beautiful of his women should be Gu Yuna and Chihiro Snow, who had now become a god. Their looks and temperaments had both reached a level of perfection. As for the others, they were a little worse. For example, BB Don and the others' temperaments weren't bad, and they would definitely improve after becoming gods. However, although their looks were top-notch, they were still a little bit away from perfection. On the other hand, his sister Wang Xiao, her looks were comparable to Gu Yuna and Chihiro Snow's. If her temperament could keep up, she could also be called a perfect goddess. Oh, yes, there was also the Snow Emperor. Her looks were also known to be exquisite, and she was on the same level as Chihiro Snow and the others. If her temperament improved, she also had the potential to become a perfect goddess. However, after thinking about it carefully, Lu Yuan couldn't help but reveal a strange look on his face. It turned out that none of the 4 people who could reach the goddess of perfection were pure humans. Gu Yuna was the Silver Dragon King's human form. Wang Xiao was the Three-Eyed Golden Lion's human form. Chihiro Snow was born from a pure divine embryo and angelic blood, and could barely be considered a connate life form. The Snow Emperor was a snow spirit born in the extreme north. There wasn't a single pure human among them. Could there not be a perfect goddess among humans? Lu Yuan had some doubts about this. However, Bibi Dawn and Pasizi were already the most beautiful women among humans, but they still couldn't be called perfect. Lu Yuan didn't believe that there were more beautiful women among humans than Bibi Dawn and Pasizi. Perhaps it's really difficult for a perfect goddess to be born among pure humans. Lu Yuan touched his chin and muttered to himself. Chihiro Snow was confused as he looked at Lu Yuan, who was muttering to himself. Lu Yuan was stunned as he looked at her. After that, he lowered his head and muttered to himself. No one knew what he was thinking. Obuchi, Chihiro Snow called out. Lu Yuan didn't respond. He was still immersed in his own world. Obuchi, Chihiro Snow raised his voice. This time, Lu Yuan heard it clearly. He quickly reacted. Share. Lu Yuan looked at Chihiro Snow. What are you thinking about? Chihiro Snow asked curiously. I'm thinking about you. Lu Yuan smiled. Thinking about me? What about me? Chihiro Snow couldn't help but ask. I'm thinking about why you're so beautiful today. Share, do you know? You become a lot more beautiful. Lu Yuan laughed softly. Really? Chihiro Snow's face had a hint of surprise. There was no girl who didn't want to become more beautiful. After hearing Lu Yuan's words, Chihiro Snow suddenly became happy. Look, Lu Yuan casually waved his hand, and an ice mirror appeared in the air. In the ice mirror, Chihiro Snow's flawless beauty was immediately reflected. Looking at her own perfect face, Qian Rinchue's eyes widened slightly. She touched her own face and felt her even more delicate and smooth cheeks. The corners of her lips curled up slightly, revealing a beautiful smile. She really became a lot more beautiful. How is it? I didn't lie to you, did I, Share? Seeing Chihiro Snow smile, Lu Yuan asked with a chuckle. You big pervert. Chihiro Snow rolled her eyes at Lu Yuan and said with a snort. Hearing this, Lu Yuan slightly smiled bitterly. This was the truth. Chihiro Snow became more beautiful. Wasn't it convenient for him? Chihiro Snow walked in front of Lu Yuan, blinked her beautiful golden eyes, and asked softly, Do you like me now? Like, of course I like you. Lu Yuan embraced Chihiro Snow, looked at those delicate red lips, and was about to kiss them. Wait, just when Lu Yuan was about to kiss, Chihiro Snow suddenly shouted to stop. What's wrong, Share? Lu Yuan raised his head and looked at her in confusion. Chapter 1140. You can kiss me, but you have to wait until I settle the score. Looking at the eager Lu Yuan, Chihiro Snow said with a smile. Settle the score? The corner of Lu Yuan's mouth twitched. Share, are you serious? He thought Chihiro Snow was joking. Of course I'm serious. Do you think I'm just joking? Chihiro Snow's voice paused, and she threw a punch at Lu Yuan. Damn, can you not hit my face? Lu Yuan grabbed Chihiro Snow's fist, and the corner of his mouth twitched slightly. How many years has it been? Why is it that Chihiro Snow's habit of slapping faces hasn't changed? With such a handsome face, doesn't this woman feel any guilt when she punches it? It's just a slap in the face. Who told you to use this face to seduce girls and flirt everywhere? Chihiro Snow snorted, and the angelic holy sword in her left hand was raised, and she was about to slash down at Lu Yuan. Damn, you're trying to murder your husband. Lu Yuan grabbed Chihiro Snow's left hand again and restrained both of her hands. Let go of me. Lu Yuan's strength was great, at least tens of millions of pounds. Although Chihiro Snow was strong, she couldn't break free from his grasp. I won't let go. I won't let go. Lu Yuan smiled lightly, and looked at Chihiro Snow leisurely. Damn it! Chihiro Snow tried to pull her hands away, but they couldn't move. Lu Yuan grabbed her hands, and she couldn't move at all. It was as if two mountains were pressing down on her hands. Hee. Lu Yuan smiled and bent down to peck Chihiro Snow's red lips, and then quickly retracted it. You still won't let me kiss you? Didn't I kiss you again? So sweet. Lu Yuan smacked his lips, savoring the aftertaste. Chihiro Snow's beautiful eyes widened, and her golden eyes glared at Lu Yuan. Of course, she didn't mind being kissed by Lu Yuan. In fact, she liked it very much. However, she couldn't stand such provocation. Lu Yuan's smug look was rather hateful in her eyes. Chihiro Snow gritted his teeth and kicked out with his right leg. Lu Yuan quickly blocked and clamped Chihiro Snow's leg between his legs. Beads of cold sweat formed on Lu Yuan's forehead as he looked at Qian Rinxue speechlessly. If you break me, you'll be the one to suffer. Do you want to be alone in an empty room and live like a widow? Chihiro Snow's face was slightly red, but she was relieved in her heart. That was just an unintentional action. In fact, she regretted kicking him. But fortunately, Lu Yuan reacted quickly and blocked it. It seems that I have to punish you, Lu Yuan said, and under Chihiro Snow's astonished eyes, he kissed her again. This time, it wasn't a quick separation, but an intimate exchange. Chihiro Snow stared blankly at Lu Yuan's movements, and then quickly fell into it. Her lips slowly separated, and Lu Yuan looked at Chihiro Snow with a smile. He kissed her again on the corner of her mouth, and then gently let go of her. Chihiro Snow looked at Lu Yuan with a puzzled expression, not knowing why he took the initiative to let go of her. Lu Yuan took 2 steps back and looked at Chihiro Snow with a smile. Didn't you want to settle accounts with me? Then let's do it. Lu Yuan's figure flashed and turned into a golden light and suddenly disappeared. Chihiro Snow's expression froze, and she remembered that she wanted to teach Lu Yuan a lesson. She gritted her teeth and thought that she must teach Lu Yuan a lesson for making her cry so much in vain. Thinking of this, Chihiro Snow's figure flashed and turned into a golden light and followed Lu Yuan. 2 rays of light swept up into the sky. The destructive power of the two's fight was too great, and only in the sky could they fight without any scruples. The golden light stopped, and Lu Yuan's figure appeared. He was standing on a pure white cloud, with his hands behind his back and a faint smile on his face. The golden light followed closely behind and revealed his figure, standing opposite Lu Yuan. Chihiro Snow held the angelic holy sword in her hand, and her golden eyes looked at Lu Yuan. Her expression was serious, and her fighting spirit was high. It seems that you really want to defeat me, Cher. Looking at Chihiro Snow's appearance, Lu Yuan smiled. Ever since he surpassed her, Chihiro Snow had always wanted to defeat him again, but Lu Yuan's strength had increased too quickly, and it was difficult for her to even catch up. Now, she had become a god before Lu Yuan, and her long-lost confidence had returned. But what can you do even if you defeat me? Is it really necessary, Cher? After a pause, Lu Yuan could not help but say. Hearing this, Chihiro Snow was silent for a while, and said, I don't want to defeat you. I just want to prove myself. Prove what? Lu Yuan asked. Prove that I have the ability to fight side by side with you. I don't want to hide behind you like Hulina and the others. I want you to know that other than Gu Yuna, I can also face any difficulties and challenges with you. Chihiro Snow said softly. The reason why she had been working hard to follow in Lu Yuan's footsteps was that she did not want to be left behind. It felt good to be protected by Lu Yuan, but she wanted to face all kinds of storms on the road with Lu Yuan. Every time she saw Gu Yuna help Lu Yuan in all kinds of ways, she was actually very envious, and she also wanted to help Lu Yuan. Back when Lu Yuan was on the verge of death in order to save her, the scene of Gu Yuna appearing to save Lu Yuan had a great impact on her. Gu Yuna could save Lu Yuan, but she needed Lu Yuan to save her. This was very difficult for Chihiro Snow, who had always been strong, to accept. So she secretly swore that sooner or later, she would also have enough ability to help Lu Yuan. This was the reason why she had to release her strength to Lu Yuan every time she broke through. In fact, she wanted to get Lu Yuan's approval and prove that she had the strength to stand with Lu Yuan. Unfortunately, before this, no matter how much she improved, there was an insurmountable gap between her and Lu Yuan. It was not until she became a god that she finally saw the light. Share. Hearing Chihiro Snow's words, Lu Yuan's heart was touched. So this was what Chihiro Snow meant. He had always thought that Chihiro Snow was just unwilling to admit defeat and wanted to win against him. I boasted that I knew you very well, but I couldn't see through your true thoughts. I've really failed as a husband. Lu Yuan laughed at himself. A blood-red light surged in his hand, and Ashura's sacred sword appeared in his hand. Pure killing intent filled the air. Come on, Cher. Let me see your true strength. Don't you want to prove yourself? Then prove it to me. Go all out and defeat me. Lu Yuan swung the Shura sacred sword lightly and said with a serious face, Okay. Chihiro Snow's golden eyes flickered slightly. She took a deep look at Lu Yuan. Her figure flashed, and the angelic sacred sword in her hand slashed toward Lu Yuan with terrifying power. Lu Yuan's expression didn't change. He waved the Shura's sacred sword in his right hand and met the attack directly. Clang! The two swords clashed, and a terrifying energy burst out. Chihiro Snow's figure was directly pushed back more than 100 meters before coming to a stop. Chapter 1141. Chihiro Snow clenched the holy angelic sword tightly. Both her hands felt numb. Lu Yuan's attack just now had almost caused the holy angelic sword to slip out of her hands. That terrifying power was truly frightening. As expected of you. You're amazing. Chihiro Snow had a faint smile on her face. As expected of the man she had taken a fancy to, his strength was simply terrifying. Although she had already become a god, she still couldn't see the depth of Lu Yuan's strength. Lu Yuan still gave her the feeling of an unshakable mountain. Just a casual attack was enough to make her feel like she couldn't block it. But I'm no longer the Chihiro Snow of the past. Chihiro Snow softly muttered, her golden eyes flashing. Just now, Lu Yuan had only casually attacked, and she hadn't used her true strength. With a thought, Chihiro Snow's body began to emit a rich golden light. Accompanied by a mysterious and ancient chant, the 10-winged angel martial soul instantly attached to her body. Red, 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 9 soul rings sparkled, each with a slight golden luster. The age of the soul rings didn't change. They were still 100,000 years old. However, the quality of the soul rings had increased. With Chihiro Snow's ascension, they had been tainted with the aura of the angel god. In addition to these 9 red soul rings, a huge reddish-gold soul ring appeared behind Qianren Shue. It was the divine ring that belonged to the 10-winged angel god. As soon as the 10-winged angel martial soul appeared, Chihiro Snow's aura soared in an instant. The terrifying aura formed a wave of air that drove away the clouds under her feet. Holy light illumination. Chihiro Snow shouted and raised the holy angelic sword high up. 10,000 rays of golden light appeared in the sky and shone on Chihiro Snow's body. At this moment, the golden red on Chihiro Snow's body completely turned into a pure golden light. A liquid-like golden light circulated on the angel god armor. The energy fluctuations around Chihiro Snow suddenly became rich. She clasped her hands in front of her chest, and a huge illusion of an angel appeared behind her. The golden divine power began to rapidly condense into a huge angelic sword. Angelic sword! Chihiro Snow shouted and slashed out with the angelic sword in her hand. The illusion behind her also slashed out with the sword. The divine skill angelic sword paired with the divine artifact angel sword. Before the sword light arrived, an extremely sharp aura had already rushed towards her. Come on, Emperor's sword, unparalleled chill. Lu Yuan's eyes flickered. The blood-red Azura sacred sword blossomed with an icy blue radiance. An ice-cold aura was released from Lu Yuan's body. The icy blue radiance rapidly condensed into a huge, icy blue longsword. Lu Yuan waved his hand casually, and the icy blue longsword swept out horizontally. It collided with Chihiro Snow's golden greatsword. The angelic sword with intense heat collided with the extremely cold ice sword. Immediately, a sizzling sound was heard. White fog rapidly surged in the sky. A violent explosion was heard from the place where the two swords collided. A terrifying energy fluctuation wreaked havoc in all directions. Ice and fire were incompatible. The destructive power caused by the collision was rather astonishing. Affected by the energy backlash, Chihiro Snow's body trembled and retreated more than 20 meters. Lu Yuan's body didn't move at all. He drew in the air, and a spatial crack appeared. With a light wave of his left hand, the terrifying ice and fire energy whirlpool was stuffed into the spatial crack by Lu Yuan. The white fog gradually dispersed. Lu Yuan and Chihiro Snow stood facing each other. Share, continue. Didn't you want me to see your strength? This is far from enough. Looking at Chihiro Snow, Lu Yuan said indifferently. Chihiro Snow's divine skill wasn't weak, but it was far from enough for him. Today, I won't use my martial soul. I won't use my dual pupils or Dragon Emperor draining spring spear. I only have the Azura sacred sword in my hand. Come, defeat me. If you can't even defeat me, then don't stand by my side. Because you're not qualified. Lu Yuan spoke again in a soft voice. Since Chihiro Snow wanted to fight side by side with him, then she had to prove her strength. If it wasn't enough, then she had to obediently stand behind him and enjoy his protection. He didn't want to see Chihiro Snow get injured or even lose her life. Hearing Lu Yuan's words, Chihiro Snow took a deep breath, and a serious look appeared in her eyes. Since Lu Yuan said so, then she had to do her best to defeat Lu Yuan. Angelic Domain. Chihiro Snow shouted in a low voice, and a boundless golden light erupted from her body. The resplendent light soared into the sky, blocking the light of the sun. After breaking through to God rank, Chihiro Snow's angelic domain had evolved into the angelic domain of the 10-winged angel god. This was a domain that truly belonged to a god-rank powerhouse. Seeing Chihiro Snow use the angelic domain, Lu Yuan immediately released his own domain. Golden Dragon Domain. Disperse. Chihiro Snow pointed her sword, and an inexplicable power swept out, and Lu Yuan's Golden Dragon Domain disappeared without a trace. The divine skill Disperse could disperse any non-god rank domain. Although Lu Yuan's Golden Dragon Domain was very powerful and not inferior to a god rank domain, Lu Yuan himself wasn't a god, so his Golden Dragon Domain hadn't reached god rank yet. Under the effect of the divine skill Disperse, Lu Yuan's Golden Dragon Domain was immediately dispersed. Death God Domain. Lu Yuan raised his eyebrows slightly, and once again used the Azura God's Death God Domain. Lu Yuan had already cultivated the Death God Domain to its peak, and it contained an intense and domineering Azura power. Disperse. Chihiro Snow pointed his holy sword again, and an invisible wave swept out. Lu Yuan's Death God Domain was once again dispersed and disappeared without a trace. Lu Yuan couldn't help but let out a soft cry of surprise. Looking at Chihiro Snow's serious face and burning eyes, the corners of his mouth couldn't help but curl slightly. Interesting, Lu Yuan muttered softly as he looked Qian Rinxue in the eye. Perhaps Qian Rinxue could really defeat him after he had released a large amount of water. If that was really the case, not only would he not be angry, but he would also be very happy. Gradually, he began to look forward to Chihiro Snow's performance. The Golden Angelic Domain covered the entire sky, and the entire martial spirit city was covered by Chihiro Snow's Angelic Domain. Naturally, Lu Yuan was the focus of attention. The terrifyingly high temperature and the endless power of purification madly surged towards him. With a thought, Lu Yuan's golden blood essence surged out, and the surrounding angelic domain's divine power was completely blocked. Chihiro Snow stood in the air and pointed his holy sword forward. Chihiro Snow's 5 pairs of snow-white wings abruptly spread open, and golden light circulated. At this moment, the snow-white wings turned completely golden, and an endless amount of angelic domain's divine power began to rapidly converge. Chapter 1142. Angelic Wings, a divine skill, had a very strong defensive ability. It could block and reflect attacks, but its greatest use was to condense divine power. Under the effect of 5 pairs of golden angelic wings, Chihiro Snow's angelic divine power quickly gathered. She gripped the angelic sacred sword, and a terrifying amount of divine power poured into it. Radiant light shot out in all directions. Chihiro Snow swung the angelic sacred sword in the air, and the angelic sacred sword slashed at Lu Yuan. Lu Yuan's eyes narrowed. He swung the Shura sacred sword, and a blood-red sword light with a sharp sword aura slashed at Chihiro Snow. Clang! The angelic sacred sword and Shura sacred sword clashed again, and a crisp sound of collision rang out. Chihiro Snow flapped her wings, and in an instant, she flew behind Lu Yuan. Within the angelic domain, Chihiro Snow's speed was enhanced. She, who was already proficient in aerial combat, was like a fish in water. Lu Yuan turned around and blocked Chihiro Snow's angelic sacred sword. Golden blood energy surged out of his body, and Chihiro Snow's attack was repelled. Chihiro Snow didn't care. Her figure transformed into a series of illusory afterimages, and she surrounded Lu Yuan and launched a flurry of rapid attacks. Extreme Speed's expression did not change. The Shura's sacred sword in his hand emitted an immeasurable amount of light. The afterimages almost formed a blood-red light shield, blocking all of Qian Rinchue's attacks. Whoosh! The Shura's sacred sword emitted a sword cry, and a sharp, invisible sword aura burst out. The void trembled, and Chihiro Snow's figure was ejected. The wings on her back stretched out, and the angelic sacred sword in her hand flashed with the power of light. Lu Yuan looked at Chihiro Snow and said softly, "Not bad. Keep going. You should have more angelic divine skills, right? Use them all. Don't worry about hurting me." "All right, then be careful." Hearing Lu Yuan's words, Chihiro Snow nodded. Her gaze became unusually firm. Since Lu Yuan wanted to see her angel divine skill, she would show it to him. Angel Fire Dragon Formation. Chihiro Snow pointed the angelic holy sword at Lu Yuan, and the angelic domain's angelic power began to boil. Flames brimming with the power of light quickly condensed and transformed into ferocious, gigantic flame dragons that flew towards Lu Yuan. The ferocious fire dragon roared, as if it wanted to devour Lu Yuan. The fire dragons flew over, bringing with them extremely high temperatures. Every fire dragon was filled with an enormous and explosive amount of light and fire energy. Angelic Fire Dragon Array. This was one of the skills that evolved the angel domain to the divine domain. Good attack. Lu Yuan's eyes flickered as he praised softly. He still had a leisurely look on his face, even though the angelic domain was constantly suppressing and purifying his soul power. The Clear Air Sutra's soul power was endless to begin with, and the angelic domain's purification and weakening didn't have much of an effect on him other than suppressing his strength. As for the effect of confining Lu Yuan's body, it was as good as not having any effect at all. This was because Lu Yuan hadn't moved a single step from the beginning to the end. He was just standing there like a live target. Azura 10,000 Blade Slash. Lu Yuan softly chanted, and Azura's power surged. The Azura holy sword slashed out, and the blood-red sword light instantly enlarged. Then it split apart and turned into blood-red energy blades that filled the sky. The fire dragons that covered the sky and earth were all beheaded before they could reach Lu Yuan. The fire dragons formed by the angel's power immediately exploded violently. Chihiro Snow's eyes narrowed. The angelic fire dragon array was broken just like that. Then, her eyes focused again, and the angelic domain shook violently again. Boundless golden light flashed, and Chihiro Snow's body suddenly split apart. Countless Chihiro Snow's body covered the entire angelic domain. At the same time, a dazzling disk that radiated with boundless light force appeared behind each of the Qian Rinshue. Each of the Qian Rinshue charged toward Lu Yuan at lightning speed. The split Chihiro Snow's body turned into bright balls of light. The balls of light gathered one after another, and finally turned into a huge scarlet gold meteor that rushed directly toward Lu Yuan. The huge pressure coming toward him made Lu Yuan's eyes narrow, and he slashed out with the Azura Holy Sword. Boom! The scarlet gold meteor directly hit the Azura Holy Sword. Under the impact of the tyrannical energy, Lu Yuan's body was directly pushed back. The hot power of light and fire followed the Azura Holy Sword and invaded Lu Yuan's body. Good God! Lu Yuan's eyes had a trace of admiration. Since the start of the battle, this was the first time he was pushed back. Just based on the fact that Chihiro Snow could push him back, her strength was completely comparable to a second-level god, even if Lu Yuan was holding back a lot. Stop! Lu Yuan shouted, and the golden blood energy on his body suddenly erupted. The golden blood energy that seemed to have substance exuded an indescribably terrifying power. Lu Yuan's retreating figure completely stopped. The Azura Holy Sword radiated light in all directions. The golden blood energy of the five-clawed golden dragon king merged with the killing intent of the Azura Holy Sword, and a huge amount of energy erupted. Bang! The scarlet gold meteor was directly slapped back by Lu Yuan's sword, and it turned back into Chihiro Snow's figure. Chihiro Snow's eyes had a trace of astonishment. Her great sun, angel, and myriad suns above the heavens were broken so easily. Azura blood sword. Lu Yuan muttered, and the Azura holy sword that had merged with the blood energy of the five-clawed golden dragon king shone brightly again. A huge scarlet gold long sword condensed, and the long sword grew bigger and bigger. In the blink of an eye, it had become thousands of meters long. The terrifying energy it exuded made Chihiro Snow's heart jump. Not good. Chihiro Snow couldn't help but cry out in alarm. She saw that Lu Yuan had already ruthlessly slashed out with a huge sword in his hand. The scarlet gold greatsword directly tore apart the angel domain, and even the golden canopy in the sky was torn apart. The long-lost blue sky and white clouds returned here. With the angel domain broken, Chihiro Snow couldn't help but bleed from the corner of her mouth. The golden blood on her red lips was particularly conspicuous. Cher is injured. Seeing this scene, Lu Yuan couldn't help but feel distressed, but he suppressed it. If Chihiro Snow wanted to stand by his side and fight side by side with him, she must have enough strength. Although Chihiro Snow's strength was good, it was still not enough, so now was not the time to feel distressed. If he wanted to feel distressed, he would have plenty of time to feel distressed after the battle. Thinking of this, Lu Yuan's eyes became indifferent again. Chapter 1143. Schwerer, is that all you've got? Lu Yuan held the Azura sacred sword in his hand as he looked at Qian Rinshue and asked, "Damn it." Chihiro Snow couldn't help but clench her fists when she heard Lu Yuan's words. She didn't think that the angelic domain she had placed so much hope in would be broken so easily. Without it, the battle would be even more difficult. Moreover, Lu Yuan's nonchalant manner in which he easily neutralized all of her attacks had touched her deeply. Even at this point, was the gap between her and Lu Yuan still so big? Was she really going to have to hide behind Lu Yuan and be protected by Lu Yuan for the rest of her life? No, absolutely not. This was not what Qian Rinshue wanted. She wanted to stand by Lu Yuan's side openly and help him fend off the dangers that came from all over the place. Whatever Gu Yuna could do, Qian Rinshue could do as well. Slowly wiping the blood from the corner of her mouth, Chihiro Snow's golden eyes burned with an unyielding flame. She slowly raised the angelic holy sword. The wing-like gauntlets on both sides of the angelic holy sword spread open. Suddenly, a myriad of rays of light shot towards the angelic holy sword. The radiance of the sun shone on Chihiro Snow's body, causing her aura to rise sharply. As a 10-winged angel, Chihiro Snow could borrow the energy of the sun, just like the sea god could borrow the power of the sea. Under Chien Rinchue's control, an endless amount of sun god power gathered and flowed into the angelic sacred sword in her hand. The angelic sacred sword began to radiate a pure golden light. Under the effect of the sun god power, the power of holiness and fire suddenly began to explode. Chihiro Snow held the angelic holy sword and slashed forward. A 500-meter-long golden blade of light slashed towards Lu Yuan. Although the golden blade of light was only 500 meters long, the energy it contained was extremely extraordinary. It contained an extremely sharp aura and intense energy fluctuations. The power of this sword was mainly due to its explosive energy. A light flashed in Lu Yuan's eyes, and the Azura sacred sword in his hand slashed out. A blood-red sword light flashed out, meeting the golden light blade head-on. Suddenly, a terrifying explosion resounded, setting off a huge energy fluctuation. Lu Yuan's figure flashed, completely ignoring the energy fluctuations. In the blink of an eye, he appeared above Chihiro Snow's head. The Azura sacred sword slashed down without hesitation. Chihiro Snow's pupils shrank, and he hurriedly raised the angelic holy sword above his head. Dang! A huge force struck, and Chihiro Snow was directly smashed down from the sky. Chihiro Snow flapped his wings, and just as he stabilized himself, Lu Yuan's Azura sacred sword came at him again. Chihiro Snow hurriedly raised her sword to block the attack, but the terrifying force hit her and sent her flying again. Lu Yuan gripped the Azura sacred sword and followed after Chihiro Snow. Share, this battle is not a turn-based one. You use one move, and I'll use one move. This is a real battle, Lu Yuan said softly. The Azura sacred sword didn't stop. Again and again, it slashed down on Chien Rinchue's angelic sacred sword. Chien Rinchue was exhausted from running for her life. She barely managed to defend herself. She didn't even have a chance to fight back. Lu Yuan didn't give her a chance to breathe. Share, your combat techniques are still too weak. Just using skills is not enough. The Azura sacred sword blossomed with a crimson light, and Lu Yuan slashed at Chihiro Snow once more. Chihiro Snow did her best to raise the angelic holy sword in front of her. However, the huge force coming at her directly knocked Chihiro Snow's angelic holy sword out of her hand, and the Azura sacred sword's blood-red edge rested against Chihiro Snow's snow-white neck. The sharp sword energy caused Chihiro Snow's skin to involuntarily turn cold. Is that it? Share, you really disappoint me. Lu Yuan quietly looked at Chihiro Snow, a trace of disappointment in his eyes. Chihiro Snow's strength was actually quite good. In his heart, he was quite satisfied. Now, he wanted to thoroughly pressure Chihiro Snow. Chihiro Snow had just become a god, and she had not yet familiarized herself with many of the angelic divine skills. It was already rare for her to be able to fight with him until now. However, he believed that Chihiro Snow's potential was not limited to this. Aside from himself, Chihiro Snow was currently the #1 genius on the continent. She could definitely become stronger. Chihiro Snow stared blankly at Lu Yuan, her golden eyes somewhat absent-minded. Had she lost? Had she been defeated so easily by Lu Yuan? Lu Yuan had casually broken all of her attacks, and she could not even block a single set of attacks. Even the angelic holy sword had been sent flying. Was the gap between them already this big? How could someone like her be compared to Gu Yuna? Was she even qualified to stand beside Lu Yuan and fight alongside him? Chihiro Snow laughed at herself. She looked disappointed, and a layer of mist slowly covered her golden eyes. Cry? Can crying solve the problem? Lu Yuan pinched Chihiro Snow's chin and looked at her seriously. Cher, are you giving up just like that? Chihiro Snow softly opened her mouth, but she did not know what to say. Of course, she did not want to give up, but she had lost. She had lost easily. Losing is not scary. What's scary is that your heart is dead. The Chihiro Snow, I know, does not know how to write the word give up. Lu Yuan moved the Shura holy sword away and gently stroked Chihiro Snow's cheek with his left hand. I'll give you one more chance. Come on, beat me. I don't think my Cher will let me down a second time, right? Chihiro Snow slightly raised her head and looked at Lu Yuan with her golden eyes. Lu Yuan smiled and said, I haven't been defeated for many years. I haven't even been injured. Why? Don't you want to defeat me once? Yes. Chihiro Snow nodded, and her eyes revealed a serious look. Yes, then let's continue. Lu Yuan stretched out his hand and placed the angelic holy sword into Chihiro Snow's hand. There was a trace of encouragement in his eyes. Chihiro Snow held the angelic holy sword and looked at Lu Yuan again. A trace of determination flashed through her eyes. She gently closed her eyes, and the angelic brand on her forehead emitted a golden light. Lu Yuan quietly looked at Chihiro Snow. Feeling her increasingly vigorous and smooth aura, the corner of his mouth could not help but curve into a beautiful smile. Chihiro Snow, she had become stronger again. Let me see the profound meaning of the angel god. Although those divine skills are not bad, they're still far from being useful. The inherited godhood would also inherit all the battle methods and divine skills of the god. However, sometimes the comprehension was not deep enough, and some divine skills could not be used. And now, Chihiro Snow was comprehending the true, profound meaning of the angel god. Once she completely comprehended it, Chihiro Snow's strength could reach the peak of second-tier god. At that time, after refining the angel god crystal, Chihiro Snow could smoothly break through to first-tier god. Chapter 1144. To be able to reach the level of a first-rank god without undergoing the baptism of immortal spiritual energy was an extremely shocking performance. Since ancient times, such a situation had never happened before. If Chihiro Snow could do it, she would be the first person in the history of the Douluo continent. After ascending as a first-rank god and undergoing the baptism of the gods, Chihiro Snow's strength would at least reach the peak of a first-rank god. She might even become a half-step god king with 8 halos. When that time came, her strength wouldn't be inferior to the sea gods, who possessed a super-divine weapon. She would definitely be the strongest among the god kings. In this way, her chances of breaking through to the god king realm wouldn't be small. What Lu Yuan wanted to do was to completely stimulate Chihiro Snow's potential so that her strength could reach its maximum as soon as possible. She could quickly grow. This was his goal. The angel god had the ability to borrow the power of the sun. His prospects were much better than the sea gods. Although the sea god controlled the power of the ocean, there was a huge difference between the ocean and the sun. In theory, the sea god's godly position should be lower than the water god's. The water god controlled all water in the world, so the ocean should be under his control. From Lu Yuan's perspective, the sea god of the Douluo continent had stolen much of the water god's authority. This was why he could become so powerful and even nurture a super divine weapon, the sea god's trident. The water god had lost the corresponding authority. Although he was still a first-rank god and was one of the 7 elemental gods, he was being ridden on by the sea god, who should be under his control. It had to be said that this was a kind of irony. Of course, this had nothing to do with Lu Yuan. He even wanted the sea god to become stronger. After all, Zhu Zhuqing was inheriting the sea god's godly position. She was his woman. He was just mentioning it. Let's talk about Qianren Xue again. As the god of 10 winged angels, Qianren Xue could borrow the power of the sun. Her potential was limitless, and the probability of her evolving into a celestial king was quite high. What Lu Yuan did was to increase this probability. Lu Yuan's eyes flickered slightly as he looked at Qianren Xue, who was meditating with her eyes closed. He touched her delicate nose and looked down. The intense battle between Lu Yuan and Qianren Xue had already alarmed everyone in the Martial Spirit Palace due to the terrifying energy fluctuations. Each and every one of them had their eyes fixed on the battle in the sky. Lu Yuan swept his gaze around, and the chrysanthemum, and golden crocodile all appeared in his field of vision. His gaze swept across the area and finally stopped at the island in the middle of the lake. Bibi Dong raised his little head and looked at him with his pink eyes without blinking. Their gazes met, and they smiled at the same time. Lu Yuan looked to Bibit and sighed. With the help of his polychoria, he could clearly see Gu Yuna's figure. She was covered in layers of space. Although her figure was there, it concealed all of her characteristics and bloodline aura. Even a god wouldn't be able to discover her uniqueness. As for Gu Yuna's human form, no one in the god realm had ever seen her. Without her bloodline aura, no one in the god realm would be able to recognize her. Nar is indeed very cautious. I forgot about that. Lu Yuan sighed his heart. He looked at Gu Yuna with deep admiration. In this way, even if the Azura god and the others looked over, they wouldn't be able to discover Gu Yuna's true identity. Gu Yuna's intelligence and wisdom were truly extraordinary. Lu Yuan looked at the two girls, and his gaze returned to Chihiro Snow. Chihiro Snow's aura was still rising, and it was becoming more and more smooth. There wasn't a single flaw. Lu Yuan gently waved the Azura holy sword in his hand. He was slightly curious about Chihiro Snow's strength after awakening. About an hour later, Chihiro Snow's tightly shut eyes slowly opened. His golden eyes carried a sharp and oppressive light. Sure enough, he's at the peak of the second-level god. Lu Yuan's double pupils flickered. After this meditation, Chihiro Snow's strength had risen. He had reached the peak of the second-level god realm. Obuchi, let's go again. Chihiro Snow looked at Lu Yuan and said word by word. Okay. Lu Yuan smiled faintly. His figure retreated slightly, and the two of them faced each other with their swords. Obuchi, be careful, Chihiro Snow shouted. The 5 pairs of snow-white wings on her back flapped lightly. Her figure flew out at an extremely fast speed. The angelic sacred sword in her hand was burning with golden flames. It carried a terrifying heat as it attacked Lu Yuan. Lu Yuan also swept out. The Azura holy sword in his hand met the attack. The two of them directly engaged in an intense battle in the air. Sure enough, his attack power has increased substantially. Lu Yuan's lips curled up slightly. He was quite satisfied with Chihiro Snow's current strength. Previously, Chihiro Snow could barely block his attacks. Now he could actually clash with him in such an intense manner. This kind of improvement could not be said to be small. Angel's judgment. Just as the two of them separated, Chihiro Snow shouted. A huge illusion of an angel appeared behind Chihiro Snow. The angel's sacred sword was raised high. A huge golden light pillar shot out from the sun and descended from the sky. In an instant, Lu Yuan's figure was enveloped in it. Immediately, Lu Yuan felt his body become sluggish. The clear breath, sutra soul power in his body began to rapidly dissipate. Angel's judgment. This was one of the true profoundness of the angel god. It used the sun's power to release the light of judgment to restrict the enemy. It was a high-level divine skill of the angel god. This light pillar came extremely fast. Lu Yuan was caught off guard and was hit directly. Angel's purification. Seeing that the angel's judgment had hit Lu Yuan, Chihiro Snow immediately used another great profoundness of the angel god, Angel's purification. Chihiro Snow drew a cross in the air. It turned into a golden cross and directly merged into the huge light pillar of judgment. The light of judgment shone brightly. The light pillar of judgment suddenly turned into a huge ball of light of purification, enveloping Lu Yuan inside. The temperature inside the ball of light rose rapidly. In an instant, it reached several thousand degrees. Chihiro Snow was still pouring in a steady stream of Angel's power and Sun's energy. The temperature inside the ball of light was still rising rapidly. Ruthless. He really did it. Lu Yuan smiled bitterly. Chihiro Snow desperately raised the temperature. Was he really not afraid of completely refining him? But then again, he was the one who asked Chihiro Snow to go all out. Chihiro Snow couldn't be blamed. Angel's judgment and Angel's purification. Not a bad combo profoundness. Lu Yuan murmured softly. His polychoria flickered slightly with a hint of approval. Although his body was greatly restrained, and the grand sun, primordial fire, and the light of purification were constantly trying to refine him, the current temperature was far from enough for him. Chapter 1145. Chihiro Snow continued to pour in his angelic power, and the golden light continued to pour into the huge ball of light. The temperature inside had already risen to 6,000 to 7,000 degrees Celsius. Lu Yuan looked at his clothes that had already turned to ashes, and a trace of helplessness appeared on his face. He could withstand it, but his clothes were really not strong enough. Moreover, the surrounding purifying light was seeping into his body, trying to dissolve his soul power. However, the soul power from the Clear Breath Sutra was endless, and Lu Yuan did not suffer much damage at all. If it was someone else who was trapped like this, they might have already been defeated. Unfortunately, your opponent is me, Cher. Lu Yuan sighed softly. His eyes focused, and with a thought, the golden dragon battle armor suddenly appeared. The dazzling golden armor emitted a resplendent radiance, completely blocking the surrounding purifying light. Fire Dragon King's wings appear. Lu Yuan shouted softly, and the fiery red dragon wings stretched out from his back. The huge dragon wings stretched out gently and emitted a red light. The surrounding sun primordial fire was continuously absorbed by the huge dragon wings, and the temperature inside the ball of light quickly dropped. As the Fire Dragon King's wings that was born to control fire, it could absorb all the fire in the world, even the sun primordial fire. Chihiro Snow wanted to use fire to refine him, who had the Fire Dragon King's wings, but he was destined to fail from the beginning. On the contrary, the absorbed sun primordial fire turned into pure energy that was fed back to him. Shui, you've miscalculated this time. However, your strength is still not bad. Lu Yuan smiled softly, and the Fire Dragon King's wings increased the absorption power, and the sun primordial fire began to quickly dissipate. Outside the ball of light, Chihiro Snow, who was pouring in his angelic power, suddenly frowned. Why was the more he poured in his divine power, the lower the temperature? Chihiro Snow was puzzled. Not good. Chihiro Snow was puzzled, and suddenly his heart skipped a beat. He quickly retreated, and the huge ball of purifying light shook violently, and then exploded. Endless energy spread out in all directions and emitted a dazzling light, covering everything in the surroundings. Chihiro Snow could not help but tilt his head. When he looked back again, he saw Lu Yuan, who was wearing the golden dragon battle armor and had a pair of fiery red dragon wings on his back, looking at him with a smile. Fire Dragon King Soulbone, I actually forgot about it. Qianrenshua muttered softly. With her intelligence, how could she not see that the reason why Lu Yuan could easily break free from the angel's purification was because of the Fire Dragon King's wings? It's impolite not to reciprocate. Shui, have a taste of my flame attack. Lu Yuan smiled faintly as the dragon wings on his back emitted crimson flames. As the dragon wings flapped, fireballs flew rapidly towards Qianrenshua. The angelic wings on Qianrenshua's back fluttered lightly as she dodged the incoming fireballs. The angelic holy sword in her hand shattered the fireballs that she could not dodge. Interesting. Lu Yuan's eyes lit up. A loud dragon roar resounded. Two dragons, one white and one black, drilled out of Lu Yuan's left and right legs. Rich light and dark energy spread out. The two dragons roared and attacked Chihiro Snow. When light and dark energy joined forces, the power released was terrifying. Chihiro Snow's pupils shrank. The angel's holy sword floated out. She pointed 3 times in the air. Suddenly, 6 light spots appeared in the sky. At the same time, the 6-piece divine equipment on Chihiro Snow's body shot out of bright golden light into the 6 light spots. A golden hexagram appeared behind the angel's holy sword. The angel's holy sword was divided into 6. The 6 swords intersected and rotated. At the point of intersection, a golden energy condensed. The angel's hexagram was the defensive profound of the angel god. Boom! The 2 dragons, one white and one black, collided with the 6 angels' holy swords. A loud noise was heard. The terrifying energy attack caused Qian Rinchue's beautiful eyes to flicker. Her pretty face was filled with a grave expression. Oh no, I can't block it. Chihiro Snow was pushed back. The 6 golden angels' holy swords trembled. The hexagram flashed. It looked like it was going to collapse. Lu Yuan had used the Dragon King of Light's left leg bone and the Dark Dragon King's right leg bone skill. How could the power of the 2 skills be ordinary? No, I can't lose like this. Chihiro Snow clenched her teeth. She quickly poured in her divine power. But sometimes she couldn't block it. Boom! Another attack came. The hexagram behind her collapsed. The angel's holy sword was once again reduced to a single sword. Seeing the incoming attack, Chihiro Snow hurriedly closed her 5 pairs of angel's wings. The terrifying energy poured out from the angel's wings. Chihiro Snow's figure was blown away. Chihiro Snow was pushed back over 1,000 meters. She opened her angel's wings. She couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of golden blood. Her face was pale. What a powerful attack. Obuchi, you are really frightening. Qian Rinchue's eyes flashed with a hint of fear. She could feel that the energy that was pouring towards her had been restrained. Otherwise, she would not have just spat out a mouthful of blood. She would have been seriously injured. Now, I only have 1 move left. Chihiro Snow's eyes flashed with hesitation. But a moment later, the hesitation turned into determination. She had to prove her strength to Lu Yuan. Sun Angel! Chihiro Snow shouted in a low voice. She resolutely launched the strongest attack of the angel god. This was the last attack of the angel god. Once she used it, she would be greatly affected. Her fighting power would be reduced sharply for the next 3 days. But she had no choice. If she wanted to defeat Lu Yuan, only the Sun Angel had a chance. After a shout, the angel god armor on Chihiro Snow's body suddenly shattered. It turned into a huge flame. The endless power of the sun's primordial fire quickly condensed into the image of a huge angel. The terrifying energy turned the surrounding space completely black. Obuchi, take this. Chihiro Snow shouted. The huge angel rushed toward Lu Yuan with a power that could destroy heaven and earth. Lu Yuan's expression suddenly turned grave. This attack of the angel god had completely exceeded the strength of a second-tier god. It had stepped into the domain of first-tier god. And Lu Yuan, who didn't release his martial soul, didn't use his Polychoria and Dragon Emperor Draining Spring Spear, had just stepped into the domain of first-tier god. If I can't take this attack, I might really be seriously injured. Lu Yuan softly muttered. The Azura sacred sword in his hand blossomed with an immeasurable amount of light. Azura Judgment. Lu Yuan held the Azura sacred sword with both hands and displayed the true profound of the Azura god. Chapter 1146. Compared to the previous skirmishes, the current Lu Yuan was truly serious. As one of the Azura god's mysteries, the Azura's judgment was quite terrifying. Especially in Lu Yuan's hands, it released an extremely terrifying attack power. Lu Yuan waved the blood-red greatsword towards the giant angel. Instantly, the space where the 2 weapons collided shattered, and the endless, terrifying energy turned everything around into nothingness. Even though the battlefield was thousands of meters high in the sky, the terrifying energy fluctuations still affected the martial spirit palace below and a terrifying pressure enveloped the entire palace. The guardian knights knelt on the ground one by one, and even the titled Douluo bent down. Only a few people were able to stand. On the island in the center of the lake, Bibi Dawn looked at the intense battle in the sky, and her pink eyes had a trace of yearning. Chihiro Snow had already become a god, and she was more anxious in her heart. She didn't want to be left behind by Chihiro Snow. It seems like I have to find the other god's inheritance as soon as possible. Bibidon's beautiful eyes flickered as she softly muttered. Guyena, who was beside Bibi Dawn, also looked at the battle in the sky. She was a god king and could see more things. Chihiro Snow, huh? He's quite strong, but Obuchi, you're holding back too much. Guyena's purple eyes flickered slightly. Lu Yuan's strength was close to that of a first-tier god, and when he used super divine weapon and went all out, he could even be comparable to a peak first-tier god. If he used the god-slaying spear, how strong would he be? She didn't dare to guess, but she was sure that it would be very difficult for her to defeat Lu Yuan alone. But with such strength, he was able to fight with Chihiro Snow for so long. The amount of strength he held back was simply unimaginable. But it's time to end it. Guyena muttered softly, and her eyes didn't blink as she looked at the battle in the sky. In the sky, the blood-red greatsword and the giant angel were in a deadlock, and where they intersected, energy crazily clashed with each other. Break! Looking at the stalemate, Chihiro Snow suddenly shouted and poured all the divine power in her body into the angel without reservation. Suddenly, the power of the angel's body increased dramatically. There was a cracking sound, and the huge blood-red greatsword was crushed. Without the protection of the blood-red greatsword, the angel pounced toward Lu Yuan with a terrifying amount of energy. It was as if the Milky Way was spilling onto the ground, surging and unstoppable. Lu Yuan's expression remained unchanged. The Azura sacred sword in his hand hovered in the air as he channeled his Azura god force into it. In an instant, the Azura sacred sword transformed into a giant blood-red sword shadow, blocking in front of Lu Yuan. Boom! The angel's terrifying energy collided with the crimson sword projection, and an indescribable force of impact erupted. Lu Yuan's face instantly paled, and his body was sent flying. The terrifying angel tore through the defense of the blood-red sword shadow and rushed toward Lu Yuan's body. The golden dragon battle armor emitted a bright light to block the angel, but the impact still caused Lu Yuan's face to flush red. Interesting, but that's the end of it. Lu Yuan gritted his teeth, and an extremely terrifying killing intent burst out from his body, and the Azura sacred sword shone brightly. Azura Supreme Order! Lu Yuan shouted, and a giant Azura figure appeared behind him. The Azura figure was clad in blood-red armor, and its appearance was exactly the same as Lu Yuan's. Azura Supreme Order, this was one of the highest profoundness of the Azura divine skills. Lu Yuan held the Azura sacred sword tightly, and suddenly, the Azura sacred sword released a 9-colored radiance, and a giant 9-colored energy sword directly tore apart the energy attack in front of Lu Yuan. Slash! Lu Yuan shouted, and the Azura figure behind him did the same thing as Lu Yuan. Its body emitted a bright light, and the 9-colored divine sword that contained boundless energy was directly slashed out. Kacha! Another tearing sound was heard, but this time it was the giant angel that was torn apart. The 9-colored divine sword directly cut the angel in half from head to tail. Chihiro Snow's desperate attack was broken, and she spat out another mouthful of blood. Her face was as pale as a sheet of paper, and she, who had exhausted her divine energy, could no longer flap the angel wings on her back. She paused for a moment, and suddenly she fell down. Lu Yuan's eyes were sharp, and he flapped his dragon wings, quickly flew out, and caught Chihiro Snow's delicate body in his arms. Looking at the pale-faced Chihiro Snow, Lu Yuan's eyes flashed with a touch of pity. He poured the clear chi divine energy into Chihiro Snow's body and healed her injuries. With the help of the clear chi divine energy, Chihiro Snow's situation improved a lot. The angel wings on her back began to rapidly absorb the divine energy, and Chihiro Snow's complexion improved a lot. Obuchi, I lost. Chihiro Snow looked at Lu Yuan with an unconcealable look of disappointment in her eyes. She had tried her best, but in the end, she was still defeated. No, you have passed the test. Lu Yuan smiled gently. Suddenly, he coughed, and a stream of golden blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth. I'm already injured. Your last attack was very powerful, Cher. Lu Yuan smiled gently. He was already very satisfied with Chihiro Snow's performance. You are injured? Chihiro Snow wiped the blood from the corner of Lu Yuan's mouth, and there was a trace of concern in her eyes. Yes, I still underestimated you. My Cher is really powerful. Lu Yuan kissed Chihiro Snow's forehead and smiled gently. Chihiro Snow pursed her lips and said, But didn't you say that I would only pass if I defeated you? Even if I don't use my martial spirit, with the Azure Sacred Sword, I'm comparable to an ordinary first-tier god. How could you possibly defeat me? I just wanted to provoke you and see your strength. In the end, you gave me a pleasant surprise. You actually managed to injure me. As expected of my Shuer, Lu Yuan smiled and said softly, You actually lied to me? Chihiro Snow's eyes widened, and her face was filled with astonishment. However, this astonishment soon turned into anger. Chihiro Snow's golden eyes were burning with flames, and she directly bit Lu Yuan's ear. You actually dared to lie to me. You bastard. I will bite you to death. After Chihiro Snow broke through to the peak of second-tier god, Lu Yuan's divine body was no longer as unbreakable as before. Moreover, her teeth were much harder than her ears. This bite really caused Lu Yuan to feel a heart-wrenching pain. Hiss, it hurts, it hurts, it hurts. Cher, quickly let go. Lu Yuan hurriedly cried out in pain. Chihiro Snow shook her head and still didn't let go. Fine, you forced me to do this, Lu Yuan said ruthlessly, and then directly tickled Chihiro Snow. Chihiro Snow laughed and immediately let go of her mouth, and her body began to struggle. Lu Yuan saw the opportunity and directly blocked Chihiro Snow's red lips, and the two of them began to exchange words in the air. Chapter 1147. White clouds drifted over the blue sky, and two figures slowly emerged from a spatial rift. One of them wore a set of white robes and had a head of long black hair that draped over her shoulders. She had a chiseled face and a pair of eyes that were shimmering with dazzling light. The other figure wore a silver dress, and her crystal-like silver hair trailed down to her waist. Her purple eyes were shimmering with a peculiar sense of mystery and preciousness. These two were naturally none other than Lu Yuan and Gu Yuna. Following his battle against Chihiro Snow, Lu Yuan and Gu Yuna had taken a week to settle some miscellaneous matters before coming to this place. The Dragon Valley was situated on another continent outside of the Douluo continent, and it was also the Star Luo continent, where the Xianra Empire was situated. However, this continent wasn't known as the Star Luo continent. It was still an undeveloped continent, so it didn't have a name yet. Is this the continent that the Dragon Valley is situated on? Lu Yuan chuckled as he looked down at the boundless continent beneath him. That's right, but the Dragon Valley isn't situated on this continent. Instead, it's situated within a spatial rift, and it's a small world that's attached to this continent. Gu Yuna replied in a gentle voice. Understood, let's go. You lead the way. Lu Yuan squeezed Gu Yuna's hand and said with a smile. All right, let's go. Gu Yuna said as she tore open a spatial rift again before leading Lu Yuan into the small world. Crack! This was the sound of a spatial barrier being torn apart, and no spatial rift or barrier could stop Gu Yuna and Lu Yuan. So this is the Dragon Valley? Lu Yuan asked with a smile at the sight of the spatial barrier that was shimmering with silver light. That's right, you can go in. We didn't enter this world through normal means. Instead, we tore open a spatial rift by force to enter this world, so the small world will resist us. I'll hold them off here. You can go in on your own. Gu Yuna said in a low voice. It's all right, come in with me. Lu Yuan smiled as he gently waved a hand through the air, and white divine power swept forth. The fluctuating small world instantly fell silent, and there was no longer any resistance. On the contrary, a welcoming atmosphere permeated through the entire small world. Gu Yuna's heart jolted with shock upon hearing this. The Dragon Valley was a place where dragons had fallen, so those with dragon bloodlines would feel extremely close to them. However, the Dragon Valley was the Dragon Valley, and a small world was a small world. Even if she were to intrude into a small world, there would still be resistance. But now, Lu Yuan's action had actually erased all resistance. On the contrary, the small world was welcoming their arrival. Gu Yuna was taken aback by this scene. Seeing Gu Yuna's shocked expression, the corners of Lu Yuan's lips curled up slightly. He tapped her delicate nose and said with a smile, "Have you forgotten about my clear chi divine power? I'm someone who controls the power of laws. Although I only control a part of it now, it's still control. No world in the entire Douluo universe will reject my arrival. I am a child of the world. A small world was also a world, and because it was a small world, even the laws of heaven and earth were not perfect. As the child of the world, Lu Yuan could enjoy the greatest control as soon as he entered. I forgot about that." A hint of enlightenment flashed through Gu Yuna's purple eyes. However, she still couldn't help but heave an internal sigh. The clear chi divine seed and the power of laws that Lu Yuan possessed were indeed far more powerful than she had imagined. "Let's go, mine up." Lu Yuan smiled as he led Gu Yuna into the Dragon Valley. The spiritual chi of heaven and earth is so rich here. The spiritual chi in the Dragon Valley is far richer than in the outside world. Ever since I entered the Dragon Valley, I've been struck by a strong sense of intimacy, as if I had returned home. Lu Yuan could not help but sigh as he sensed the situation around him as he walked. He could feel that the golden dragon's bloodline essence in his body seemed to be particularly active. A faint call rose in his heart, directly connecting to the distance. This is the burial ground of the dragon tribe, so the aura of the dragon tribe is everywhere. You possess the bloodline of the golden dragon, so you'll naturally be able to sense intimacy here. Look, Gu Yuna pointed to the surroundings, and countless transparent energy dragons suddenly surged out of the surrounding area before prostrating themselves toward the two of them in worship. Are these special energy life forms born from the energy within the dragon bones? A peculiar look flashed through Lu Yuan's eyes. If these energy dragons were killed, they could be converted into the purest form of energy that could enhance one's constitution and soul power, and they were extremely rare cultivation treasures. However, for beings like Lu Yuan and Gu Yuna, these low-level existences were completely useless. On the other hand, they were extremely effective for soul ancestors and soul kings. That's right, they were all born from the dragon tribe, so they possess the aura of the dragon tribe. They can sense the bloodline aura emanating from our bodies, so all of them are prostrating themselves toward us, Gu Yuna explained. Hearing this, Lu Yuan nodded slightly to express his understanding. The Dragon Valley isn't actually safe, and it's also quite perilous. However, for dragon tribe beings, it's like a fish in water. Gu Yuna introduced Lu Yuan to Lu Yuan as she walked hand in hand with him. Those are dragon clouds of all different colors, and each color represents a type of elemental energy. As for the golden ones represent blood essence, right? Lu Yuan asked. That's right. Gu Yuna nodded in response. These dragon clouds are extremely beneficial to the enhancement of one's constitution, soul power, and even spiritual power, but they still don't have much of an effect on us. Indeed, they don't have much of an effect. Lu Yuan said indifferently as he sensed the dragon clouds of various colors flashing through his body, including fiery red, light cyan, aqua blue, and earthen yellow. The dragon clouds did indeed contain some energy, but they were completely useless to him, who possessed a first-grade divine body. Unlike Tang Wulin in the original trajectory, he had reaped many benefits in the Dragon Cloud. At the end of the day, the disparity between their powers was simply too massive. Back when Tang Wulin had first come to the Dragon Valley, he had still been very weak, but he was already far too powerful. Even at his peak, Tang Wulin still wouldn't be a match for him. Even if the Golden Dragon King were to appear before him, he still wouldn't be able to defeat him. He was only laying low because he was outnumbered. In terms of power alone, he didn't fear anyone in this world, and with the god-slaying spear in hand, he had enough confidence to say this. As such, if he wanted to reap the greatest benefits, then he had to enter the Dragon Tomb in the deepest part of the Dragon Valley. Only there could Lu Yuan obtain the things that he wanted, such as the Mountain Dragon King torso bone. Chapter 1148. Let's speed up, Nar. Let's not waste any more time. Lu Yuan turned to Gu Yuna with a gentle expression. All right. Gu Yuna nodded in response, and the two of them flew into the depths of the Dragon Valley as streaks of light. Along the way, they encountered fewer and fewer dragon souls, but they were also becoming more and more powerful. According to the Douluo continent's classification system, each and every dragon soul was a true dragon soul. The true dragons here were pure-blooded giant dragons, so they weren't actually true dragons. Nar, do you think these dragons can be resurrected? Lu Yuan asked as he and Gu Yuna flew through the air. What did you say? Gu Yuna suddenly stopped as she turned to Lu Yuan with a question. I said, do you think these dragons can be resurrected? After all, their dragon souls are still around, and they've even fused with their energy to form new life forms. Lu Yuan replied in a warm voice. Gu Yuna faltered slightly upon hearing this, and an adorable look appeared on her face. All of a sudden, she became very excited, and a hint of elation appeared on her face. She stared intently at Lu Yuan, and dazzling light was flashing within her purple eyes. How could I have forgotten something so important? Their dragon souls are still around, so they deserve to be beaten up? Gu Yuna murmured to herself as she appraised Lu Yuan with an even more fervent look in her eyes. Xiao Yuan, can I ask you for a favor? Gu Yuna asked in a soft voice, and her voice was filled with pleading. Just tell me what you need. There's no need to use the word favor. You're treating me like an outsider. Lu Yuan pinched Gu Yuna's cheek with a faint smile. Gu Yuna basked in Lu Yuan's affection, and she held onto Lu Yuan's hand as she asked, "O Bu Qi, can you help me resurrect them? Can you resurrect our brethren?" Me? I don't have the ability to do that. Lu Yuan scratched his head with an awkward smile on his face. He was just casually mentioning it. He didn't have that kind of ability himself. Moreover, although these dragon souls were still there, they were all badly damaged. Not every dragon was the Ice and Fire Dragon King. They were genuine first-level gods, so most of their dragon souls could be preserved intact. However, these true dragons that they had seen so far were at most priests at their peak. You want to revive them with that incomplete dragon soul? Not even a divine king could do that. No, you have the ability. You don't have it now, but you will definitely have it after you become a god. I beg you, O Bu Qi, please help me. These people fought with us against the divine realm and died too tragically. I really feel bad about it. Gu Yuna's face was filled with grief and pain, and her eyes were filled with sadness and helplessness. When had Lu Yuan ever seen Gu Yuna like this? His heart was filled with pity. He gently stroked Gu Yuna's cheek and said, "Don't be sad. No. I promise you." Lu Yuan's voice was filled with gentleness. He stretched out his left hand, hugged Gu Yuna into his arms, and gently patted her back. Thank you, O Bu Qi. Hearing Lu Yuan's words, Gu Yuna's mood eased a little. She burrowed into Lu Yuan's arms and hugged him tightly. Alas, it seems that Na has suffered a lot in her heart. Lu Yuan muttered in his heart, gently stroking her soft silver hair. After hugging for a while, the two continued on their way. The calling in their hearts was getting stronger and stronger. Finally, after crossing over another mountain, a huge valley appeared in front of them. The valley was completely sunken inwards. In fact, it was more like a basin. The depth of the valley was at least 1,000 meters. The whole valley was incomparably huge, and one couldn't see the end of it. A faint white mist floated above the valley, blocking the view in the distance, making it difficult to see clearly. However, looking down from here, one could clearly see the huge bones scattered everywhere in the valley. They were densely packed and almost covered every corner of the valley. As far as the eye could see, there were all kinds of huge bones. In that instant, Lu Yuan only felt an indescribable sadness in his heart. At the same time, a monstrous fury surged in his heart, and a powerful aura suddenly erupted from Lu Yuan's body. Golden dragon scales suddenly appeared, and Lu Yuan couldn't help but let out an impassioned dragon's roar that reverberated throughout the valley. A low dragon's roar also came from within the valley, and it sounded as if it were weeping and complaining. Ding! You have arrived at the check-in location. Starting check-in mission. Time limit, 3 minutes. Just as Lu Yuan's heart was filled with unwillingness and anger, and his aura was about to completely erupt, the system's cold voice sounded in Lu Yuan's mind. His aura suddenly stagnated, and he immediately woke up from his stupor. Is it the influence of my bloodline? Lu Yuan couldn't help but touch his heart. His heart was beating violently, and the blood in his body was rapidly circulating. His body was formed from the bloodline of the second-generation golden dragon. Although he later fused with the heart blood of a true dragon and evolved into a 5-clawed golden dragon king, the bond between him and the Douluo dragon clan was still very strong. Looking at the dragon bones scattered all over the ground, and thinking of the tragic deaths in which they had died, grief and anger involuntarily rose in his heart. His dual pupils turned slightly, and he looked at Gu Yuna beside him. At this moment, her purple eyes were indifferent and cold, and there was boundless killing intent in the depths of her eyes. Nar! Lu Yuan gently squeezed Gu Yuna's hand and called out softly, I'm fine. Seeing Lu Yuan's worried expression, Gu Yuna smiled faintly. With Lu Yuan's comforting words, her mood slowly calmed down. It's good that you're fine. The God Realm will repay its debts sooner or later. Adjust your attitude, and don't let hatred affect your mind, Lu Yuan said with concern. Don't worry, I know. You were the one who was so agitated just now, Gu Yuna teased. Ahem, it's my first time here, so I was affected by my bloodline. Lu Yuan chuckled awkwardly. All right, let's go down first, Ner. Lu Yuan immediately changed the topic. All right. Gu Yuna gave a soft response, and the two of them held hands as they gently leaped down, quickly descending. The massive valley that was over 1 kilometer deep was nothing to the two of them, and it only took a short while for Lu Yuan and Gu Yuna to reach the surface of the valley. As soon as they set foot in the valley, an even more pronounced and desolate aura wafted from all directions. Lu Yuan felt as if he could hear the anguished cries of countless giant dragons. This valley was so massive, but it was littered with corpses and bones. It was difficult to imagine just how many giant dragons had perished here. A rough estimate put the number at least in the thousands. Every single giant dragon here was a god-tier being when they were alive, and every single one of them was more powerful than Dtion. For so many giant dragons to perish at the same time, one could only imagine just how devastating the war in the God Realm had been. Chapter 1149. Lu Yuan and Gu Yuna walked through the valley together, and one giant dragon carcass after another appeared before their eyes. Even the smallest of these giant dragon carcasses was several tens of meters in length, and they belonged to a species that was born with small bodies. Generally speaking, the larger dragon carcasses could reach several hundred meters in length. All of the giant dragon carcasses were exuding powerful dragon might, and their bones were imbued with a ferocious aura of wildness and rich energy fluctuations. Gu Yuna paused momentarily as she walked, and said, There are soul bones in all of these complete dragon carcasses. If you need them, feel free to take them. Nar. Lu Yuan faltered slightly upon hearing this, and he turned to Gu Yuna with a surprised expression. Even though he was here for the Mountain Dragon King torso bone, he wasn't actually interested in the other soul bones. However, Gu Yuna seemed to be implying that he could take whatever he wanted. Could it be that he could take the soul bones out and give them to others as well? Lu Yuan was rather taken aback by this. One had to realize that all of the soul bones here were divine-grade soul bones, and they were extremely precious. This was the wealth of the entire dragon tribe. Neither the dragon tribe nor soul beasts have any use for soul bones, so if these soul bones can be of help to you in our cause, I'm sure they'll agree to it. Besides, you're also a member of the dragon tribe, so these are also your treasures, so don't try to disassociate yourself from the dragon tribe. Gu Yuna appraised Lu Yuan with a smile as she spoke. Of course not, but seeing as you brought this up, I do want to take a few of them with me. Perhaps they'll be able to use them. That won't be a problem, right, Na? Lu Yuan asked. No problem, as long as you're happy, Gu Yuna replied. Phew, thank you, Nar. Lu Yuan heaved a sigh of relief as he chuckled. There's no need to thank me. Just treat it as a reward for reviving them in the future, Gu Yuna replied in a nonchalant manner. This. Lu Yuan faltered slightly upon hearing this, and he stared blankly at Gu Yuna. Puchi. Gu Yuna couldn't help but burst into laughter at the sight of Lu Yuan's stunned expression. She then put on a serious expression as she said, if you need these soul bones for yourself, then you can use as many as you want, even if you have to take all of the soul bones in the entire Dragon Valley. However, if you want to give them to them, then you'll have to pay a price. I'm not a generous person. I'm very stingy. Gu Yuna snorted as a faint smile appeared on her face. Lu Yuan pinched the tip of Gu Yuna's nose with a resigned expression as he said, You sure know how to differentiate. Of course we have to be clear about that. The things of a dragon clan cannot be used by irrelevant people, especially if those people are my rivals in love. Seeing as you've already decided to bring a few soul bones to them, you've already accepted the reward for your resurrection. You have to be more careful when you resurrect in the future. In the words of you humans, you've already accepted the reward, Gu Yuna said in a tender voice. Got it. Lu Yuan pinched Gu Yuna's cheek with a faint smile. In reality, he knew that Gu Yuna was saying this on purpose so that he wouldn't feel guilty over the soul bones he had given her. After all, he was absorbing soul bones and other things for the sake of the Dragon Clan. Furthermore, he had an inseparable relationship with the Dragon Clan, so he could be considered a member of the Dragon Clan, so it was perfectly justified for him to take advantage of the wealth left behind by the Dragon Clan. However, if you're to give a few soul bones to Zhu Zhuqing, Ning Rongrong, Hu Lina, and the others, then things would be different. To the Dragon Clan, Hu Lina and the others were outsiders, so they had no reason to use the wealth of the Dragon Clan. This was why Gu Yuna had said that these soul bones were the reward for resurrecting the dead Dragon Clan members. In that case, he would be able to accept the soul bones without any qualms and give them to Zhu Zhuqing and the others. Furthermore, even if Di Tian and the others were to ask about it, they would have a reasonable explanation. What a beautiful woman. Lu Yuan couldn't help but sigh internally at the sight of Gu Yuna's beautiful features. Being with Gu Yuna really was a very relaxing thing to do. Back when he was with Chihiro Snow, there was always some friction between them, but when he was with Gu Yuna, they had never argued, not even once. Ever since they had started dating, Gu Yuna had never once lost her temper, nor had she ever disobeyed him. She was as gentle as water, and his heart was unwittingly filled with warmth and tenderness. Lu Yuan could confidently say that there was no man in this world who could resist such a gentle and considerate Gu Yuna. Regardless of whether it was as a girlfriend or as a wife, Gu Yuna was the most suitable person for him. Sometimes, even Lu Yuan felt that he had let her down. It was just a pity that he was destined to be a scumbag for the rest of his life. If there was an afterlife, perhaps it would be a wonderful thing for him to be with Gu Yuna alone. Holding Gu Yuna's hand, Lu Yuan couldn't help but have a hint of affection in his eyes. Gu Yuna was slightly taken aback by the doting look in Lu Yuan's eyes. After a brief moment, she smiled. She knew that Lu Yuan had already understood her intentions. After all, this man was extraordinarily smart, and such a small thing couldn't be hidden from him at all. I was just fulfilling a request of yours, but you turned it into a deal. Sigh. Lu Yuan sighed softly. He was naturally referring to the matter of reviving the many fallen dragons in the dragon tomb after becoming a god. It's all the same. Gu Yuna smiled mischievously and said, in any case, in my heart, you're doing this for me, and not just for a few soul bones. That's true. The value of a few soul bones is completely incomparable to reviving so many dragons in the dragon tomb. It's about the same with you. How about you give me a special service? Just treat it as me taking the rest of the reward in advance. Lu Yuan suggested with a faint smile. Screw you, dream on. Gu Yuna rolled her eyes at Lu Yuan and quickly walked forward while holding his hand. Nar, walk slowly. There's no hurry, Lu Yuan said in a gentle voice. Gu Yuna didn't seem to notice, and her walking speed was still extremely fast. As Lu Yuan walked, he looked at the blushing Gu Yuna, and he couldn't help but chuckle inwardly. Nar is still Nar. She's still so easily teased. Sensing Lu Yuan's gaze, Gu Yuna's beautiful face turned even redder. She and Lu Yuan had been honest with each other many times, but when Lu Yuan mentioned a special service, she felt that it was something improper. It seemed that Bibi Dan had complained to her about something similar. Seeing Gu Yuna's beautiful face as red as an apple, Lu Yuan wanted to tease her again, but suddenly, a cold voice sounded. Ding! Sign-in complete. Reward issued. Congratulations to the host for obtaining a mysterious treasure chest. Ding! Would the host like to open it? Open it, Lu Yuan said indifferently. As soon as his voice fell, a treasure chest that only he could see directly appeared in front of him. Then it suddenly opened, and a golden light suddenly burst out. Lu Yuan stopped abruptly, and the system's voice rang out immediately after. Ding! Congratulations to the host for obtaining Clear Chi Scripture, Part 2. Chapter 1150. Ding! Congratulations to host for obtaining the Clear Chi Scripture. Part 2. Ding! Congratulations to host for obtaining the 9 secrets. Lin. Ding! Congratulations to host for obtaining a half-step God King rank Golden Dragon Soul Ring. Ding! Congratulations to host for increasing the age of all your soul rings by 300,000 years. A series of system notifications rang in Lu Yuan's ears, causing him to open his mouth slightly. His face was blank as he fell into a state of complete shock. So many rewards? Lu Yuan couldn't help but murmur softly. After checking in for so many years, this was the first time he had received so many rewards at once. Among them, the weakest reward was a 300,000-year upgrade to all his soul rings. What the F** King system did in one go. All of his soul rings had been upgraded to 300,000 years, and Lu Yuan felt an extremely dense energy surging into his body. Even his physique, which was already at the level of a first-class god, seemed to have improved a little. Originally, his soul rings were close to 600,000 years old. Now, each of his soul rings were close to 900,000 years old. This was simply unheard of. The strongest soul beast on the continent, the Soul Emperor, was 800,000 years old. This gap was frightening. Lu Yuan's heart eased slightly as he turned to look at the half-step Godly King rank Golden Dragon Soul Ring. As the leader of the 9 Dragon Kings, the Golden Dragon was second only to the Golden Dragon King and Silver Dragon King. It was the 3rd most powerful being in the Dragon tribe. It was a pity that he was heavily targeted by the God Realm during the War of the Gods and had long been beaten to the point where not even his bones remained. As for how Lu Yuan knew about this matter, it was naturally because Gu Yuna revealed it to him. The Golden Dragon Soul Ring was the highest quality soul ring Lu Yuan had obtained so far. It surpassed the Ice Dragon King, Fire Dragon King, and Azura's Origin Soul Ring. This soul ring could definitely push Lu Yuan's strength to a whole new level. Good stuff. The system is really generous this time. Lu Yuan sighed and turned his attention to the first 2 items. The Golden Dragon Soul Ring and the Golden Dragon Soul Ring were precious, but they paled in comparison to the first two items. 9 Secrets. Lin, the secret character of Lin, allows one to step into the God-forbidden domain, invincible against those of the same level, and also invincible against those of a higher level. It was a simple sentence, but it raised the prestige of the secret of Lin. The 9 esotericas were the pinnacle skills of the human race. Each of them was extraordinarily powerful. The esotericas of the swordsman's secret art of blood rebirth was truly heaven-defying, and the secret art of Lin in front of him did not lose to the esotericas of the swordsman's secret art at all. In fact, in terms of battle, the effect of the secret character of Lin was even more obvious. Amazing! It's actually the secret of Lin. Lu Yuan's eyes narrowed slightly. For a battle maniac like him, the secret Lin and secret Do were his 2 favorite secret techniques among the 9 secrets. Although he didn't get the secret Do, which had the strongest attack power, he got the secret Lin, which was a secret technique that allowed him to cheat beyond his level. It was really something to be happy about. After carefully feeling it, Lu Yuan raised his eyebrows. As expected of the secret of Lin, it's really profound, but it's really difficult to comprehend. He had the secret of swordsman for a long time, but it was only recently that he cultivated it. For people like Guyuna, Chihiro Snow, and the others, they were at most at the advanced stage. Especially Guyuna, who had been stuck at the advanced stage for a long time and hadn't made any progress. The 9 secrets, a secret technique exclusive to humans, were too difficult for soul beasts to comprehend. Let me see what's the difference between the last part of the clear air scripture and the first part. After lamenting for a while, Lu Yuan placed his attention on the clear air scripture. As his fundamental cultivation method, the importance of the clear air scripture surpassed all other secret techniques and martial skills. After all, the clear air scripture was not only his fundamental cultivation method, but also only the soul power produced by the clear air scripture could refine the clear air god seed that contained the power of law. This was an indispensable item for him to become a god of law. Now that he had obtained the clear air scripture and successfully collected the entire clear air scripture, the power of the clear air scripture would definitely increase greatly. Then, the speed of refining the clear air god seed would definitely increase. This was definitely good news for Lu Yuan. Lu Yuan carefully looked at the clear air scripture in his mind with a look of surprise on his face. Compared to the first part, the second part was indeed much more advanced. It was simply not on the same level. So, the second part actually cultivates the primordial spirit and spiritual power. Lu Yuan muttered to himself. The second part was equivalent to a comprehensive upgraded version of the first part. The first part cultivated true qi and spiritual power, while the second part directly cultivated spiritual power and primordial spirit. If the first part was still a martial arts method, then the second part was a true immortal cultivation method. Yes, the clear air scripture is a simplified version of the Tai Ching Immortal Sutra. The Tai Ching Immortal Sutra is one of the top immortal cultivation methods. This simplified clear air scripture is naturally an immortal cultivation method. In the beginning, my cultivation was too weak and had not reached the threshold of cultivation, so I cultivated the first half. But when I cultivated to the 9th level, I already had the qualifications to cultivate the second half. I also had the ability to cultivate the primordial spirit. At this time, the second half of the clear air scripture was really the most suitable. Lu Yuan smiled faintly and immediately understood everything. Looks like there are a lot of tasks for this occlusion. Not only do I have to increase my strength, gather the soul bones, condense the god armor, comprehend the clear air god seed, but I also have to cultivate the second part of the clear air scripture and condense the primordial spirit. I'm really busy, but there's no rush. I have plenty of time. Let's take it slow. Lu Yuan shook his head slightly and thought to himself, Obuchi, what's wrong? Why did you suddenly stop and shake your head from time to time? Are you sick? Right when Lu Yuan was immersed in his thoughts, Gu Yuna's pleasant voice came about. She raised her jade-like hand and gently touched Lu Yuan's forehead with a hint of confusion in her purple eyes. "Ah, I'm fine. I just thought of a few things." Lu Yuan smiled and said, "What is it that made you so absent-minded?" Gu Yuna curiously looked at Lu Yuan. "It's not anything important." Lu Yuan smiled and gently touched Gu Yuna's cheek. "Nar, I'll teach you another secret art. Do you want it?" "What is it?" Gu Yuna asked. "One of the 9 secrets, Lin. It's very powerful. Do you want to learn it?" Lu Yuan asked with a smile. "Of course, but I feel like I can't go deeper into the 9 secrets. It's very difficult to reach a higher level." Gu Yuna frowned and softly said, "This is normal because the 9 secrets are the ultimate arts of the human race. It's most suitable for humans to cultivate. Your original form is the Silver Dragon King, so it's naturally difficult for you to cultivate, unlike me. Even though I have the bloodline of the 5-clawed Golden Dragon King, I'm still human, so it's easier for me to cultivate," Lu Yuan gently said. Chapter 1151. "Oh, so that's how it is." Gu Yuna nodded with a look of realization on her face. "However, although you can't cultivate to the highest level, you can still gain a lot of benefits from cultivating the 9 esotericas. Especially the Secret of Lin, it's the best weapon to fight those of a higher level. Although you definitely can't step into the God Prohibition domain and kill those of a higher level, you can still gain a great advantage against those of the same level. Actually, your combat power hasn't increased by much. With the True Dragon Claw and the Secret of Swordsman, you can fight against the Azura God. However, that's not enough. The Secret of Lin can help you improve further. You have to know that there are 5 divine kings, dozens of first-tier gods, and hundreds of second-tier gods in the divine world. You can say that there's strength in numbers. However, we only have you and me. Therefore, we can't give up any chance to improve our strength," Lu Yuan said with a serious face. "You're right. We still need to become stronger." Hearing Lu Yuan's words, Gu Yuna nodded in agreement, and her eyes were filled with a strong sense of determination. "Close your eyes," Lu Yuan said softly. Gu Yuna closed her eyes. Lu Yuan raised his right hand and pointed at Gu Yuna's forehead. He passed on the Secret of Lin that he had just obtained. The Secret of Lin was very profound. After Lu Yuan passed it on, Gu Yuna immediately frowned. After a while, Gu Yuna, who had completely digested the content, opened her eyes. "It's so hard." Gu Yuna opened her big watery eyes and looked at Lu Yuan with a pitiful look. "Hee, it's good that it's hard. Take your time to comprehend it. This time, I don't have any experience to pass on to you. I didn't even comprehend it myself." Lu Yuan laughed. He instantly understood Gu Yuna's plan. This girl wanted him to pass on his cultivation experience like he did in the past. After all, she was able to cultivate the Secret of Swordsman to a higher level because of Lu Yuan's experience. However, this time, Lu Yuan couldn't help her. He had just obtained the Secret of Lin not long ago and hadn't even practiced it. How could he pass on his experience to her? Gu Yuna pursed her lips upon hearing Lu Yuan's words. It appeared that she really was going to have to rely on herself this time. Lu Yuan tapped Gu Yuna's pouty lips with an amused expression before continuing onward while holding onto her hand. As they walked, it did not take long for a massive dragon corpse to appear before the two of them. This dragon corpse was much larger than any of the dragon corpses they had encountered before. It was over 1,000 meters in size, and it radiated extremely dense energy fluctuations. The energy fluctuations contained a faint, solemn aura. Moreover, Lu Yuan could clearly feel a sense of intimacy coming from the dragon skeleton in front of him. It was a special feeling that was much more intimate than any of the previous dragon skeletons. Mountain Dragon King. Looking at the huge dragon skeleton in front of him, Lu Yuan couldn't help but speak softly, his dual pupils flashing. This was one of the targets he was looking for this time. The Golden Dragon tribe had the bloodlines of both the Golden Dragon and the Mountain Dragon King, so Lu Yuan naturally had an extremely close relationship with the Mountain Dragon King. Furthermore, the 5-clawed Golden Dragon King bloodline aura emanating from Lu Yuan's body made the Mountain Dragon King's skeleton tremble in fear. After all, the five-clawed Golden Dragon King's bloodline was superior to that of the Dragon God, and it was the most powerful dragon bloodline in this world. All dragons could only bow before it, and the Mountain Dragon King was naturally no exception. Mountain Dragon King, Gu Yina murmured with a hint of sadness in her voice. The Mountain Dragon King was one of the most powerful beings in the dragon tribe, and it was second only to the Golden Dragon among the 9 Dragon Kings. However, it had also perished in the battle of the Divine Realm. However, compared to the Golden Dragon, it was a little luckier as its dragon corpse had been preserved in perfect condition. Nar! Lu Yuan gently squeezed Gu Yuna's hand with a concerned look in his eyes. He knew that Gu Yina had to have recalled some unhappy memories. I'm fine. Gu Yina shook her head with a gentle expression, and her grip on Lu Yuan's hand tightened slightly. Even though the dragon tribe had fallen from grace, the opportunity to make a comeback was right in front of her. Lu Yuan could sense the pressure from her hand, and he said in a gentle voice, "You have me. I've always been here. The past is in the past, but the future of the dragon tribe is definitely bright. Relax, don't dwell on the past. What we should be looking forward to is the future." All right, Gu Yina nodded as a warm smile appeared on her face. Even Lu Yuan was entranced by her beauty. Moments later, Lu Yuan came to his senses, and he turned to the Mountain Dragon King's skeleton again as he said, "Ner, don't you feel like the Mountain Dragon King's skeleton is more sentient, as if it were filled with life force?" "What do you mean?" Gu Yina's eyes widened slightly as a hint of speculation appeared on her face. "Perhaps this Mountain Dragon King is in the same situation as the Water and Fire Dragon Kings," Lu Yuan replied with a warm smile. "You're saying that its soul fragment still exists?" The existence of a dragon soul fragment was completely different from the existence of a dragon soul. A dragon soul was a new life formed from the combination of the soul power and energy of a deceased dragon tribe member. However, a soul fragment was a broken soul, which meant that the soul fragment that belonged to the Mountain Dragon King still existed. At the very least, a portion of it still existed, and it hadn't undergone any changes with its energy. This was exactly the same as the situation with the Water and Fire Dragon Kings. It could slowly recover under the effects of divine power. "That's exactly what I mean. Come out, Mountain Dragon King." Lu Yuan spoke in an indifferent voice as white light erupted from his hand, completely enshrouding the Mountain Dragon King's massive dragon corpse. Earthy yellow light converged on the dragon corpse, and a massive dragon projection appeared. It was none other than the Mountain Dragon King's soul fragment. "Mountain Dragon King, you really aren't completely dead yet." Gu Yina spoke with a hint of elation on her face. However, a sharp light then flashed through her purple eyes as she asked, "Then why didn't you respond at all when I came here?" "Silver Dragon King, I didn't swear allegiance to you, and I don't see any opportunity in you for the dragon tribe to rise to prominence. Even if I did respond to you, what would I have done?" The Mountain Dragon King spoke in an indifferent voice, and his boorish voice instantly rang out. As a member of the Golden Dragon King's bloodline, the Mountain Dragon King didn't have much respect for the Silver Dragon King. In reality, the Fire Dragon King and the Water Dragon King also didn't have much respect for Gu Yuna, as they were still loyal to the Dragon God. They had been born far earlier than the Golden Dragon King and the Silver Dragon King. Furthermore, the Mountain Dragon King had been at the pinnacle of the first-tier god level, second only to the Golden Dragon, who was a half-step god king among the 9 Dragon Kings. Chapter 1152. Gu Yuna's expression changed slightly upon hearing the Mountain Dragon King's words, but she then heaved a faint sigh. The Mountain Dragon King was right. If she were to fuse with the Golden Dragon King, there was no way that she would be able to revive the dragon race, even if she were to fuse with the Golden Dragon King to revive the Dragon God. The Dragon God had lost in the past, so the current Dragon God would only suffer an even worse loss. Back then, the 9 Dragon Kings and the other beastly gods had all perished. On top of that, the Golden Dragon King was sealed in the divine realm, so it was virtually impossible for her to fuse with the Golden Dragon King. It was understandable that the Mountain Dragon King didn't have high hopes for her. After all, they had experienced the battle of the divine realm, so they were more aware of just how powerful the divine realm was than anyone else. The Water and Fire Dragon Kings also didn't have high hopes for Gu Yuna. If it weren't for the fact that Lu Yuan had shown them a glimmer of hope, they would have most likely chosen to remain in the Ice Fire Yin Yang well and wait for their deaths. The Mountain Dragon King didn't look at Gu Yuna. Instead, he turned to Lu Yuan with unbridled excitement in his eyes. Not only could it sense an intimate bloodline aura from Lu Yuan's body, it could also sense a burst of terrifying might that was even more powerful than that of the dragon god. The reason why it came out so quickly was because it saw hope in Lu Yuan. The hope of the dragon clan rising again. Sir, can you tell me the origin of your bloodline? I can sense an extremely intimate bloodline aura from your body. Your bloodline is very similar to that of the Golden Dragon race, but it's far superior. Even the Golden Dragon King and even the Dragon God were far inferior to you. It's very difficult to imagine that someone like you could be born in our dragon race. The Mountain Dragon King spoke with a hint of respect in its voice. In contrast with the Water and Fire Dragon Kings, the Mountain Dragon King had a direct bloodline connection with Lu Yuan, so it was facing a lot more pressure than the Water and Fire Dragon Kings. Furthermore, Lu Yuan was far more powerful than when he had first entered the Ice Fire Yin Yang well. At the time, he was only able to defeat a limit Douluo at most, but now, he was no less powerful than a first-tier god. You think I'm a dragon? You don't think I'm human anymore? Lu Yuan asked with a smile. Back then, the Water and Fire Dragon Kings still held some grudges against him because he was a human. They weren't completely loyal to him. The Dragon King of Water and Fire wanted to be loyal to his and Gu Yuna's child, a true dragon with a supreme bloodline, and Gu Yuna's Silver Dragon King bloodline. However, this Mountain Dragon King seemed to be completely different. It had already regarded Lu Yuan as a member of the dragon tribe. My lord, you must be joking. My bloodline senses tell me that you are the purest member of the dragon clan, and not a human who has obtained the dragon clan's bloodline. However, I don't know why you are still a human. The Mountain Dragon King shook its head in response. In the original timeline, even though Tang Wulin possessed the Golden Dragon King bloodline, he had only been acknowledged by the Mountain Dragon King after the 1,000 Days dragon burial, and had been gifted a torso bone. The Mountain Dragon King could see that his Golden Dragon King bloodline was completely foreign, so he could only be considered a half-dragon at most. However, Lu Yuan gave him a very different feeling. He had an extremely pure bloodline, and the Mountain Dragon King had determined that Lu Yuan was the purest member of the dragon clan. However, the only one who could sense that Lu Yuan was a pure dragon was the Mountain Dragon King. A faint smile appeared on Lu Yuan's face upon hearing the Mountain Dragon King's words. Even he didn't know what was going on, let alone the Mountain Dragon King. Theoretically speaking, he should be a complete dragon, but he just so happened to be a human. This could only be attributed to the system's miraculous nature. Lu Yuan shook his head in an indifferent manner and said, I am indeed a pure dragon, but I'm also a human, so there's no conflict between the two. As for the origin of my bloodline, it does indeed originate from the Golden Dragon Clan. That's impossible. How could the Golden Dragon Clan be so powerful? Even the Golden Dragon King's bloodline is far inferior to yours. The Mountain Dragon King immediately retorted as soon as Lu Yuan's voice trailed off. Aside from the Golden Dragon King, none of the other Golden Dragon tribe bloodlines were even more advanced than it. So how could it have given birth to a being like Lu Yuan? This didn't make any sense, and even atavism couldn't have happened in this manner. My bloodline evolved, and I obtained a drop of blood from a 5-clawed golden dragon's heart. Lu Yuan replied in an indifferent manner. A 5-clawed golden dragon? What kind of being is that? The Mountain Dragon King asked in a curious manner. Just a drop of blood from a 5-clawed golden dragon's heart was enough to elevate Lu Yuan's bloodline to that of the dragon gods. Just what kind of terrifying being was this? You don't need to know what kind of being it is. All you need to know is that only five-clawed golden dragons can be referred to as true dragons, Lu Yuan replied in an indifferent manner. What about us? The Mountain Dragon King asked. You guys can only be considered mixed blood dragons at most. The same goes for the dragon god, Lu Yuan replied in a soft voice. Mountain Dragon King. If it weren't for the fact that the person standing before was Lu Yuan, if it weren't for the fact that Lu Yuan's bloodline pressure was superior to that of the dragon gods, and if it weren't for the fact that it was only a soul fragment that couldn't defeat Lu Yuan, it would have definitely taught Lu Yuan a lesson. How dare he call the dragon god a mixed blood dragon? Obuchi. Gu Yuna couldn't help but yell as she stomped on Lu Yuan's foot. Wasn't Lu Yuan implying that she was a mixed blood dragon as well? Can't I even tell you the truth? Lu Yuan asked innocently. He was telling the truth. No. Gu Yuna glowered at Lu Yuan with a vicious expression. Lu Yuan clenched his fists as he said in an indifferent voice, All right, then I won't say anything else. The dragon god is very powerful, yea. Both Gu Yuna and the Mountain Dragon King faltered slightly upon hearing this. The Mountain Dragon King's lips twitched as he looked at Lu Yuan. He's a little mischievous. All right, that's enough. Gu Yuna rolled her eyes at Lu Yuan before turning to the Mountain Dragon King as she said, We're actually here for your torso bone. Obuchi is missing a torso bone before he can attain a full soul bone. As you know, a full soul bone is a prerequisite for becoming a god, so all right, I understand. It's just a soul bone, isn't it? It's my honor to be able to use it, Master. To be honest, I can see the future of the dragon tribe in you, Master. With your leadership, it won't be difficult for the dragon tribe to regain its former glory. Master, I have a presumptuous request. Would you be able to agree? The Mountain Dragon King asked in a respectful manner. If there's anything, just say it, Lu Yuan said softly. Chapter 1153. It's like this, Your Excellency. I want to follow you, the Mountain Dragon King said. Follow me. Lu Yuan and Gu Yuna glanced at each other with astonishment in their eyes. The Mountain Dragon King's words had caught them by surprise. That's right. You're the hope of our dragon tribe, and I want to use my broken body to contribute to the dragon tribe. My divine core is still here, so I can offer it to you as a soul ring. I just don't know if you have a full ring yet. The Mountain Dragon King explained. I don't have a full ring yet. I have twin martial souls. Lu Yuan replied in an indifferent voice. Twin martial souls? That's perfect. I can become your soul ring, and I'm sure my soul ring will help you progress further. The Mountain Dragon King's eyes lit up, and its voice reverberated throughout the entire valley. What do you think, Na-er? Lu Yuan turned to Gu Yuna. Agree to it. This is its final wish, and it's very powerful. Its soul ring will definitely be of great help to you. Obuchi, we have to seize every opportunity to become stronger. You said that yourself. Gu Yuna spoke in a meaningful voice. You're right, Na-er. Lu Yuan nodded in response, before turning to the Mountain Dragon King. All right, I agree. Actually, it's good that you're here. The Water Dragon King and the Flame Dragon King are both bored in my mind, so you'll be able to keep them company. Oh, they're following you, Your Excellency? That's a wise decision. The Mountain Dragon King was slightly surprised to hear Lu Yuan's words, but it then sighed with praise. It seemed that his former companions had all made the wisest choice. Great minds think alike. A faint smile appeared on the Mountain Dragon King's face. It was much better to be with these two than to be all alone. A faint smile appeared on Lu Yuan's face upon hearing this. He hadn't expected the Mountain Dragon King to do something like this. However, this was a good thing that had been delivered to his doorstep. In addition to the golden dragon soul ring that the system had rewarded him, his god-slaying spear, Martial Soul, now had 3 soul rings. The god-slaying spear's soul ring was very difficult to find. It had a minimum requirement for soul rings, and that was that it had to be a god-rank soul ring before it could be added to the god-slaying spear. This was why Lu Yuan had never taken the initiative to search for a soul ring for the god-slaying spear. However, the 5-clawed Golden Dragon King's soul rings were already full. Even if the god-slaying spear didn't have a full ring, it wouldn't hinder his ascension to godhood. In theory, as long as one had a martial soul paired with a soul ring, it would be enough to advance to the next level. This was the cultivation rule of twin martial souls. Becoming a god was actually the same. However, becoming a god here referred to creating one's own god position. Inheriting a god position was not allowed. For example, Lu Yuan's 8th Azura trial required him to have both twin martial souls to have a full set of soul rings. This also caused Lu Yuan to completely abandon the path of becoming a god. He had no choice but to wholeheartedly comprehend the clear air god seed to become a god. It could be said that the god-slaying spear's special requirement was somewhat frustrating. The minimum requirement for a god-rank soul ring was simply too difficult. However, considering the god-slaying spear's status and its immense power, soul rings below the god-ranked were truly not worthy of it. With these thoughts in mind, Lu Yuan's gaze once again turned to Gu Yuna. Gu Yuna smiled and said, "Since the matter has been decided, let's not waste any more time. Let's begin as soon as possible." "Okay." Lu Yuan nodded and glanced at the Mountain Dragon King. The Mountain Dragon King immediately understood and let out a resonant dragon's roar that echoed throughout the valley. Bursts of low dragon's roar also erupted throughout the entire valley, as if all of the dragon bones were responding to the Mountain Dragon King. Upon seeing this, Lu Yuan couldn't help but release his 5-clawed Golden Dragon King bloodline without any reservation, and it instantly permeated throughout the entire valley. Both Gu Yuna and the Mountain Dragon King trembled in unison, and all of the dragon souls in the valley prostrated themselves in submission, as if they were paying homage to a paramount monarch. Lu Yuan was just releasing his own aura when his brows suddenly furrowed. Not far away from the Mountain Dragon King's dragon bones, an even more powerful aura was surging toward him, and it seemed to be resisting his bloodline. Not only was this aura more powerful than that of the Mountain Dragon King, it was even more powerful than that of Gu Yuna, who was standing before Lu Yuan. "Interesting. You want to go against me? Do you have a death wish?" Lu Yuan's brows furrowed slightly as his bloodline aura became even more powerful. Rich golden blood energy proliferated through the air, and terrifying aura quickly swept forth. The Mountain Dragon King's incomplete soul abruptly shuddered, and it showed signs of collapsing. At this point, the entire soul fragment had already prostrated itself onto the ground, trembling uncontrollably. Gu Yuna, who was standing beside Lu Yuan, was also trembling uncontrollably. She bit down on her lower lip, and her fists were clenched tightly. Her features were completely pale, and bursts of anguished cries rang out from within her bloodline. Her entire body was slowly bending over, and she was also on the verge of falling to her knees. As for all of the other dragon souls in the valley, all of them let loose low dragon's roars as they wholeheartedly submitted to Enlin. "Obuchi." Gu Yuna spat out these two words with great difficulty. Lu Yuan placed a hand on Gu Yuna's shoulder, and all of the pressure she was feeling immediately dissipated. "What's going on, Obuchi?" Gu Yuna turned to Lu Yuan with a perplexed expression. She didn't understand why Lu Yuan would suddenly activate his bloodline so vigorously. "Someone's trying to provoke me. Don't worry about it. I'm going to crush it no matter what," Lu Yuan said faintly. His might increased again and condensed towards the place where the aura came from. Roar! A loud dragon's roar erupted in the distance, and it was still resisting Lu Yuan's aura with all its might. Gu Yuna and the Mountain Dragon King shuddered in unison upon hearing this dragon's roar, and a hint of enlightenment flashed through their eyes. "You stubborn fool! I am the ruler of all dragons in this world, and all dragons must prostrate themselves before me. Crush me!" Lu Yuan roared as shimmering golden dragon scales appeared all over his body, and a burst of earth-shattering might erupted forth in an unbridled manner. All of a sudden, fierce winds howled in the air above the entire small world, and the projection of a 5-clawed golden dragon king flew out from Lu Yuan's body. It threw its head back and let loose a long roar, and its terrifying dragon's roar rang out throughout the entire small world. Roar! In the face of this enormous pressure, a thunderous howl of anguish erupted in the distance, accompanied by a sense of submission. A burst of nine-colored light rose up from nearby, flashing as if it were worshipping Lu Yuan. The dragon god has been defeated. The mountain dragon king's eyes were trembling as it lay prostrated on the ground. Lu Yuan had just crushed the dragon god, and in its eyes, Lu Yuan was like a god. It knew that Lu Yuan's bloodline was superior to the dragon gods, but there was no comparison. However, this scene had completely stunned it. Dragon god, Gu Yuna's purple eyes blinked. This was the first time she had seen the paramount dragon god being completely crushed, and she was completely at a loss. Even though the dragon god had lost the battle of the divine realm, it wasn't because the dragon god wasn't powerful enough. Instead, it was because the dragon god was outnumbered. However, the dragon god had been completely defeated in a contest of bloodline power, and it had even publicly declared its submission. Even she was at a loss for what to do upon seeing this. Looks like you know your place. Lu Yuan gradually withdrew his aura at the sight of the shimmering nine-colored light, and he patted Gu Yuna on the shoulders. He said, Go and absorb the dragon god's heart and soul. It should be fine now. In the Dragon Valley, the only thing that could suppress the mountain dragon king and Gu Yuna was the final wisp of the dragon god's soul. Even though it was only a wisp of the dragon god's soul, it still possessed the might of the dragon god. Furthermore, the dragon god's heart was imbued with boundless energy, and it would definitely be extremely beneficial to Gu Yuna. You don't want it? Gu Yuna turned to Lu Yuan with a stunned expression. The dragon god's heart contained the position of the dragon god, and it was a top-rate super divinity tool. The dragon's soul contained boundless energy, and even if she were to absorb it, her powers would be enhanced significantly. It wasn't that she hadn't been tempted in the past, but she hadn't been able to freely control the dragon god's heart. After all, the dragon god's heart belonged to the dragon god, and only the dragon god could perfectly control it. However, Lu Yuan had used his bloodline power to suppress it, so it would be a lot easier for him to refine it. Lu Yuan waved a hand in a nonchalant manner and said, I don't want it. Besides, the dragon god's heart isn't very useful to me, so you can go ahead. He had the Mountain Dragon King and Golden Dragon King soul rings, and if he were to absorb them, his soul power would most likely be able to ascend straight to the spirit god realm. If you make too much progress at once, it wouldn't be a good thing. As for super divinity tools, he already had two, the Azura Holy Sword and the most powerful super divinity tool, the Dragon Emperor Draining Spring Spear. Even if he were to be given the dragon god's heart, he wouldn't be able to use it. As for the dragon god's position, how did it compare to the divine lost seat? There was simply too much of a disparity between the two. Furthermore, the dragon god's heart would be extremely useful in Gu Yuna's hands. Obuchi, Gu Yuna called out in a gentle voice, and a peculiar light flashed through her eyes. Lu Yuan waved a hand with a faint smile and said, All right, don't be so emotional. Go on, I'm about to begin as well. All right, Gu Yuna nodded and gave Lu Yuan a quick peck on the lips. She then sped toward the nine-colored light, not far away. Lu Yuan took a glance at Gu Yuna's departing figure before withdrawing his gaze and turning to the Mountain Dragon King. Let's begin, but I don't need you to sacrifice yourself. I have a set of soul spirit techniques, so just follow my instructions. Lu Yuan said in an indifferent voice. Yes, Your Excellency. The Mountain Dragon King became even more respectful, and there was even a hint of humility in its expression. Lu Yuan had already completely subdued this man who was able to repress even the dragon god's aura. Lu Yuan sat down with his legs crossed, and a magic formation over 1 kilometer in size enshrouded Lu Yuan and the Mountain Dragon King within. Lu Yuan pointed a finger forward, and golden light materialized to form a contract before disappearing into his and the Mountain Dragon King's glabella at the same time. At the same time, Lu Yuan's blood essence golden core, soul power golden core, and nascent soul golden core all shuddered at the same time, and it was as if some kind of barrier had been opened. The accumulated energy of the Mountain Dragon King's soul ring immediately began to surge violently within his body. Lu Yuan's soul power began to rapidly increase, and it only took a short while for him to break through the bottleneck of the limit Douluo level. Mid-limit Douluo, late-limit Douluo, and then pinnacle limit Douluo. After about a dozen minutes, the barrier to the demigod realm was also opened, and Lu Yuan directly entered the demigod realm. Demigod, it's about time to suppress it. Lu Yuan's heart stirred, and he began to exert a powerful suppression. However, the Mountain Dragon King's soul power was simply too powerful, and even though Lu Yuan was suppressing it, its soul power was still increasing at a frenzied rate. Lu Yuan's heart stirred, and a portion of the energy within his body was diverted into the soul rings of his five-clawed Golden Dragon King martial soul. A dragon's roar shook the heavens, and his five-clawed Golden Dragon King martial soul also appeared. A large portion of the energy within his body was diverted into the first 6 soul rings of his martial soul. Chapter 1154. As a reward from the system, Lu Yuan's twin martial souls had a special characteristic that other twin martial souls didn't have. They could be used at the same time. In fact, Lu Yuan's use of the god-slaying spear proved this point. After all, his first martial soul was in a state of possession when he used the god-slaying spear. After the energy from his body was injected into the first 6 soul rings of the five-clawed Golden Dragon King, the pressure in his body was greatly reduced. The first 6 soul rings of the five-clawed Golden Dragon King also began to slowly increase in age. Lu Yuan divided his attention again. On one hand, he controlled the growth of his soul power, and, on the other, he paid attention to the age of his soul rings. It had to be said that the Mountain Dragon King's soul rings were the most abundant among all the soul rings that Lu Yuan had obtained. Whether it was the Fire Dragon King's soul rings or the Water Dragon King's soul rings, they were still slightly inferior. After all, the Fire Dragon King and the Water Dragon King were only first-rank gods when they were alive, while the Mountain Dragon King was at the peak of the first-rank god. There was still a gap between them. Phew, there's a lot less energy. It's a lot easier to suppress. Lu Yuan exhaled lightly. The pressure in his body slowly increased, and the growth of his soul power began to slow down. Another 2 hours passed, and Lu Yuan finally stabilized his aura. Compared to before, Lu Yuan's aura was much more condensed and terrifying. Before absorbing the soul ring, Lu Yuan had abandoned the god-slaying spear. Although his strength was comparable to a peak first-rank deity, his aura was only comparable to a first-rank deity's. But now, Lu Yuan's aura was no less than that of a first-rank god. He could be considered a genuine first-rank god. Even the 6-winged angel god's aura was comparable to Lu Yuan's. In a fight, no first-rank god other than the sea god would be a match for him. Of course, this also referred to the situation when the god-slaying spear was removed. Aside from the boost in his aura, the first 6 soul rings of the five-clawed Golden Dragon King had also received significant enhancements from the Mountain Dragon King soul rings. Originally, they were all over 800,000 years old, close to 900,000 years old. Now, they had completely broken through the 900,000-year bottleneck, and each of their soul rings had reached 900,000 years of age. These were the enhancements brought about by the Mountain Dragon King soul rings. Each of these 6 soul rings was around 950,000 years old, and even though the enhancements didn't appear to be significant, the more energy one needed to upgrade one's soul rings, the more energy one would need to expend to do so. This required even more energy than his previous 6 soul rings, which were all 500,000-year soul rings. Peak of the demigod realm. Lu Yuan suddenly opened his eyes, and his sharp gaze shot out. Even though he had used up a portion of his soul power and was doing his best to suppress it, The Mountain Dragon King's soul power had still raised his soul power to the pinnacle of the demigod stage. In a situation where he didn't need to refine his divine body, the divine-grade soul ring began to display its terrifying soul power enhancements. If it weren't for the fact that Lu Yuan had forcibly suppressed and converted his clear qi scripture, which cultivated magic power of extremely high quality, the Mountain Dragon King Soul Ring would have most likely pushed Lu Yuan straight to the divine official stage. Even so, Lu Yuan was still at the pinnacle of the demigod realm, and he was only one step away from the semi-divinity stage. This was the fearsome power of the first-grade Soul Ring. One had to realize that Neptunia's Soul Ring had only just reached the divine official stage, and it had already boosted Bibidin's soul power from a limit Douluo to the semi-divinity stage, let alone a first-grade Soul Ring like the Mountain Dragon King. It was only natural for such enhancements to occur. Peak of the demigod realm really is different. I'm a lot stronger than before. Lu Yuan clenched his fists, and he could clearly sense that his power had increased significantly compared to when he was only at the half-step limit Douluo stage. I've only just become more powerful, so I can't absorb any more soul rings. If I make too much of a breakthrough, it'll inevitably affect my foundation. I should take a break to hone my skills and familiarize myself with my new power before I absorb the Golden Dragon's soul ring. Lu Yuan muttered to himself as he turned to the Mountain Dragon King, who had already become his soul spirit. Due to the special nature of the god-slaying spear, even though the Mountain Dragon King was a divine-grade soul spirit, it could only provide Lu Yuan with a single soul ring. After successfully becoming a soul spirit, the Mountain Dragon King's soul body had completely solidified, and it had benefited greatly from Lu Yuan through the use of soul spirit techniques. Mountain Dragon King, give me your torso bone as well. I don't want to increase my power anymore. I want to take care of the divine equipment first, Lu Yuan said in an indifferent voice. Yes, master. The Mountain Dragon King replied in a respectful manner, and a streak of yellow light flew out of its dragon bone before stopping in front of Lu Yuan to reveal its true form. This was an extremely complete and transparent torso bone. There were countless cross-sections throughout its body, and as long as there was even a hint of sunlight, it would shine with extremely dazzling light. Lu Yuan could clearly sense the powerful energy fluctuations imbued within the soul bone. The quality of this soul bone far exceeded that of any of the soul bones he currently possessed. Even though there were many other soul bones that belonged to a first-tier god, just like this one, this soul bone was of the highest quality at the moment. Of course, this was only the case for now. Lu Yuan's external soul bones would all surpass this one in the future, especially his Aquafire Dragon King wings, which were already very close in quality to this Mountain Dragon King torso bone. Lu Yuan estimated that after absorbing the Golden Dragon Soul Ring, the Aquafire Dragon King wings would be able to surpass the Mountain Dragon King torso bone. He extended his right hand to grasp the Mountain Dragon King torso bone, and he was immediately struck by an extremely heavy weight weighing down on his hand. Among the 9 great Dragon Kings, the Mountain Dragon King had the heaviest body. The Mountain Dragon King's torso bone came from it, so it was also astonishingly dense. However, to Lu Yuan, this weight was nothing. His strength had already reached an unfathomable level, and it definitely weighed in at least tens of millions of kilograms. After absorbing the soul ring, his strength had increased once again. Lu Yuan carefully inspected the Mountain Dragon King torso bone, and all of a sudden, the bone transformed into a streak of light that surged directly into Lu Yuan's body. Lu Yuan was immediately struck by a sense of heaviness and solidity as a steady stream of power flowed into his body from the earth. He felt as if all of the mountains and rivers in the world were calling out to him. Chapter 1155. The earth beneath his feet was extremely intimate with him, and he felt as if he had fused as one with the entire Dragon Valley, allowing him to sense every single blade of grass and tree within the valley. All of the dragon skeletons within the Dragon Valley also seemed to have become more intimate with him. Aside from their initial reverence and submission, there was also an aura of reverence and reliance. How interesting! Is this the energy imbued by the mountain dragon king torso bone, compared to the energy gathered by the wings of the water and fire dragon king? The energy imbued by this mountain dragon king torso bone is much more direct. Just by standing on the ground, one has an endless source of energy. This is what it means to be truly invincible on the ground. Being able to stand on the ground and draw energy from the earth to replenish oneself was what it meant to be truly invincible on the ground. Tang Chen's clear sky hammer was unable to reap any benefits from the earth. However, it's normal for it to be able to draw energy from the earth. After all of these mountains and continents were originally formed from the bodies of the mountain dragon kings, which is why all of the mountain dragon kings are crowned as kings upon reaching adulthood. Being crowned king isn't a representation of one's power. Instead, it's a recognition of one's achievements. In terms of bloodlines, the leader of the 9 great dragon kings, the Golden Dragon King, is definitely superior to the Mountain Dragon King, let alone the Golden Dragon bloodline and the Silver Dragon bloodline. However, only the Mountain Dragon King's bloodline can claim the throne in every generation. For example, Long Yu's martial soul is the Mountain Dragon King, but in terms of power, his martial soul may not be as powerful as Chior's Golden Dragon, but he's still crowned king. All of the pure-blooded Mountain Dragon martial souls are referred to as Mountain Dragon Kings. However, there's only one true first-generation Mountain Dragon King in front of me. Lu Yuan muttered to himself as he scanned the entire Dragon Valley with his mind. He was surprised to find that there was an extremely terrifying dragon power hidden in the Dragon Valley. It had already penetrated deep into the Dragon Valley. If this dragon power were spread out, it would probably cause the entire continent to change and give birth to countless new dragons. Could it be that Nar hasn't detected this burst of power? If she were to use this power, it would most likely be no less effective than the dragon god's heart. In fact, it might even contain more energy than the dragon god's heart. If the heart of the dragon god contained the purest energy and final inheritance of the dragon god, then the dragon power gathered in this earth was the accumulation of the countless dragons that had perished in the Dragon Valley during the War of Gods over countless years. The abundance and terror of this energy was beyond imagination. If there was anything bad about it, it would be that it was mixed and not pure enough. After all, aside from the pure-blooded giant dragons in the Dragon Tomb, there were also countless wyverns and mixed blood dragons in the Dragon Valley outside. As such, there was no way that the dragon power in the mix would be so pure. Perhaps this is the reason why Nair didn't take a liking to it. With Nair's prideful personality and her stubbornness towards her bloodline, she probably wouldn't be interested in such impure energy. A wry smile appeared on Lu Yuan's face as he speculated. Perhaps it wasn't that Gu Yuna hadn't noticed this, but rather, she simply didn't take a liking to it. After all dragons cared about their bloodlines the most, and those with pure bloodlines would always look down on those with impure bloodlines. Most importantly, Gu Yuna was already a godly monarch, so she didn't need pure energy. Normal energy wouldn't be able to help her improve, so only the power of the dragon god within the dragon god's heart would be able to help her. This meant that what Gu Yuna needed was quality, not pure quantity. Lu Yuan pondered this for a moment, and he instantly figured out what Gu Yuna was thinking. Nair can't use it, but perhaps I can. I definitely won't be able to use it to enhance my soul power, but if I can use it to refine a set of divine equipment, then this dragon power would be very useful. Lu Yuan heaved a faint sigh as a thought occurred to him. His soul power quickly circulated through his body, and the Mountain Dragon King torso bone was quickly refined. Bursts of powerful energy began to emanate from within, quickly diffusing into all of Lu Yuan's limbs and bones, thereby enhancing his constitution. The clear energy scripture was quickly activated, and clear energy magic power cleansed the Mountain Dragon King torso bone, branding it with Lu Yuan's aura, thereby completely transforming it into something that belonged to Lu Yuan. As soon as the Mountain Dragon King torso bone returned to its original position, a special connection abruptly erupted, and dazzling light began to appear on all of Lu Yuan's body at the same time. Lu Yuan was instantly enshrouded within a set of dazzling, five-colored divine equipment. His right arm was of a dazzling golden color. His left arm was of an ocean blue color. His left leg was of a pure black color, and his chest was of a dazzling golden color. He wore a dark golden helmet on his head, and a pair of black and dark golden gloves on his hands. On his back, a pair of icy blue and crimson wings flapped in the wind, and boundless fire element and water element energy flowed into Lu Yuan's body in an unending stream. I've become a lot more powerful, and this set of divine equipment is finally complete. But so ugly. Lu Yuan smacked his lips. As someone who was obsessed with appearances, he couldn't help but turn his nose up at this messy set of divine equipment. I still have to refine it seriously, but first, I have to upgrade my skull and these external soul bones to Grade 1 Divine Soul Bones. As for my left arm bone, I wonder if I can forcibly evolve it if I inject an extremely powerful amount of energy into it. If I add in my clear energy divine power, it should be able to. After all, the power of laws is extremely profound, so it shouldn't be too difficult to break through the restrictions of soul bones. Lu Yuan thought to himself as he started to think about the dragon power that he had just absorbed. Even though he wouldn't use it to increase his soul power, it would definitely make the best use of it to upgrade his soul bones. I'm not in a hurry to upgrade the other soul bones. Let's find a few skulls to feed Tao Tai's skull first. Lu Yuan clapped his hands and stood up. He wandered around and began to search for soul bones. After finding a few suitable soul bones and placing them in his star ring for Hulina and the others, Lu Yuan began to search for the skulls he needed. Among the 9 pure-blooded dragon clans, the Spatial Dragon King clan was the most proficient in spiritual power. Although there were no Spatial Dragon King skeletons in the Dragon Valley, there were still pure-blooded spatial giant dragon skeletons. In addition to the other dragon skeletons, Lu Yuan had a dozen or so skulls in his hands. It wasn't that he didn't have any more, but this was already enough. Among them, he had the most spatial giant dragon skeletons, with a total of 5. After all, spatial giant dragons usually produce skulls, so it wasn't difficult to find them. He also had light, darkness, water, fire, wind, and other dragon skeletons. Furthermore, Lu Yuan also found a lot of divine rank external soul bones. Although external soul bones were rare, there were so many dragons present, and they were all divine rank ones, so it wasn't difficult to find some. Lu Yuan naturally wouldn't leave them out. He also kept a few of them. External soul bones were rare treasures, and Hulina and the others could use them. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.